Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another round of the UK Sim Racing Community Formula 4 Championship Season 1, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform known only as iRacing, available on PC. Tonight, we take a look back at the second round of the 7-round calendar, which will be taking place at Oulton Park, located in the region of Cheshire in the United Kingdom. It is the case that we're going racing at a circuit that holds no prisoners when it comes to close battling and overtaking, with the island variant, which our drivers will be racing on, being a variant which sees our drivers run approximately 66% of the full circuit. But it is the case that whilst we're not running the full quote-unquote international circuit, it is one of those situations whereby we'll be seeing close action, and overtaking will be challenging for our drivers, whether they're in the top class of platinum, the middle split class of gold, alternatively the lower class of silver. Albeit the silver drivers may be in the lowest of the three classes here, but by no means they're racing action, not of the calibre of the other two. Indeed, the season opener at Oulton Park last time out proved that, and the story continues tonight across the races in the United Kingdom. This broadcast is being brought to you, of course, as a post-round broadcast. So it's the case the racing action occurred a couple of weeks ago, in fact a week ago, back on what would have been the Wednesday, if I remember correctly, Wednesday the 29th of June, unless I'm very much mistaken, and we're bringing you the post-round broadcast as if it were live. And I, as your commentator, do not know what exactly has happened over the course of the three races tonight. It's all new to me, and therefore we're not going to be giving anything away. And if you are tuning in as one of our racers who took part in this round, please try to avoid giving away any key spoilers for those guys and girls who are tuning in and they do not know what's happened, because indeed it is the case I'm going into it raw to give you that full live experience. But who am I? My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Brit of the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and it is the case I'll be bringing you all of your coverage for the purposes of this season. Indeed, the broadcast being brought to you on the UK Sim Racing Twitch channel. Let's go to twitch.tv/UK Sim Racing. But having covered our introductions and whatnot, we must look to the season ahead, and it is the case that last time out, of course, we were at Oulton Park in a round that saw a good number of our drivers in this series take it to the British circuit, and indeed it was the case. We saw frantic race in action over the national variant, and well, tonight, of course, it is Oulton Park. In a week's time, we'll be heading to Knock Hill, and the racing action will be on the 13th of July, albeit the broadcast will be post-round on the 15th of July, and then from round 4 onwards, all the broadcasts will be live. That's right, we'll be bringing them to you live as the racing actually occurs. Due to scheduling, we couldn't quite bring you the opening 3 rounds live. That's not to worry, it is the case that in round number 4, we go to the Snetterton 300 circuit, a circuit which is much loved by all of our drivers for its ability to throw a challenge in every single corner and indeed every single straight. We'll then be heading to Silverstone for round number 5, the heart of British motorsport, before heading to Brands Hatch, a circuit very close to my heart. It's only 20 minutes up the road from me in the Corridor box, and it is the case that the Brands Hatch circuit will be our penultimate round before we head across the pond to the United States of America for Lime Rock to wrap up the series on the 7th of September. But we've got a long way to go, and indeed we're a long way to go. We've got plenty of racing action to go with it. Now, focusing on our circuit for tonight, of course, in round number 2, it is the case that we're at Oulton Park, located in Little Budworth, Cheshire, United Kingdom. This circuit is one of those circuits whereby, even with the island course, as we said earlier, it's going to be challenging. And this image provided to us by simracingwiki.com, very grateful to them for their circuit maps, doesn't quite provide the full picture. The full picture, as we'll see in qualifying when we ride on board with some of our drivers across the classes, is that this circuit presents 2 very unique aspects. Firstly, a major series of gradient changes between corners. The run from turn 1 down to turn 3 specifically is one of the biggest drops on a United Kingdom circuit in terms of a gradient change, going from the top of a hill to the bottom of a hill in very quick succession, with a braking zone which is split with a bump in the middle of the braking zone. You want to brake just before it, but you'll see that in due course. We've also got the run from the hairpin of turn 4 all the way out to the chicane of turns 5 and 6 before the run out to 7, and it's an uphill run through turns 8 and 9 into a downhill braking zone, interestingly enough, which then goes uphill into the apexes of turn 10, and then it is the run into another minor crater-based braking zone into turn 11, and a bump in the middle of the apex there will really make it challenging, as our drivers then have to head uphill from turn 11 to turn 12 and finally complete the lap. But again, it's a case that a picture may speak 1,000 words, but it's not the case it can give you the full flavour of what the circuit is like. And as we take a look to our pictures at the circuit side right now, let's take you, I should say, through our schedule. Times in British summertime, that's BST or UTC +1. It'll be the case in just over 10 minutes time. We'll be getting underway with our 15-minute qualifying session to set the grid for the purposes of race number 1 of our 3 races this evening. After that, we'll be heading straight into our first race, a 20-minute race where it will see all in, no holds barred action. Indeed, all 3 of our races technically sprint races. There's no expected pit stop. Well, actually, I'll clarify that it's the 3rd race where we will see that scheduled pit stop, but it is the case the first 2 races are sprints, and the 3rd race will see a pit stop thrown in there for good measure. The difference between race 1 and race 2, they're both 20 minutes and they'll follow immediately after one another, is the case that in race number 2 we will be seeing a top 10 reverse grid based on the results of race 1, and then when we go to race number 3 it will be a full reverse grid of the race 2 results. Sounds familiar? It's similar to the template that is used in British series in the real world, such as a British touring car, albeit with some slight variations there, but it is the case major points up for grabs over the course of the 3 races for all of our drivers, and if a driver doesn't do too well in the first race, well, they can always do well in the 2nd and 3rd races. But it is the case we do have a packed schedule, and whilst we are waiting to go racing, do keep in mind, of course, if you are tuning in tonight on the UK Sim Racing Twitch channel, we have recently introduced to the channel the ability to obtain credits by subscribing to the channel, and you can apply these credits on checkout when purchasing league entries on our official website. And we have 3 tiers of subscription available to you. Firstly, there's tier 1, which is £3.99 per month, or just using a Twitch Prime subscription provided by Amazon Prime. You get 1 free Twitch Prime subscription, of course, with your Amazon Prime service. Alternatively, if you want to go a little bit more expensive, you can go for tier 2, which is £7.99 a month, or if you want to go all in for £19.99 per month, you can go to tier 3. And you can find out more about the subscription service, and indeed our credits, by visiting our website and creating an account. That's our website at uksimracing.co.uk. And as I say, it is the case that all the funding that you put in to the website and whatnot, that all goes into the series that we run here at UK Sim Racing. So it's for the greater benefit of everybody involved, you the viewer, you the driver, if you're tuning in as a viewer and a driver, and also for the future series as we continue to expand on the iRacing platform. But as we do look to circuit side right now, it is the case as we look here, we can see that Austin William Campbell making his way up towards turn number 4 at this point. We've got one driver who's decided to have a major off track, and I believe that's Duncan Watts who's got it very wrong. But right now all of our drivers just doing their final practice session here, that final warm-up, and we are just under 8 minutes away from going into that qualifying session. And well, if you thought it was packed last time out at Donington Park where we had just over 20 drivers, I can tell you today we have increased that by 50%. We have got 30 of our participants taking to the circuit today. It is going to be tight around here, and with a lap time coming at around 1 minute 20 on a fast lap, it is the case it is going to be crammed, and the racing is going to be very close, nip and tuck all the way through. But as we see Chris Hitchin here from Symphony Esports making his way on his first practice lap, the silver driver there making his way down towards the braking zone for the chicane at turns 5, 6, 7. It is the case we also have our gold driver here, Samuel Hooper, making his way through the turn 4 hairpin. And as he rolls on through here, we did see, of course, at Donington the prevalence on the power of slipstream in qualifying, indeed in the race. And can we expect that again here today? Yes and no. Yes, in the fact that the run from turn 3 up towards the hairpin and the run from the hairpin to the turn 5 chicane will definitely be benefited from the tow, but around the rest of the lap you really do want clear air around here if you can afford it, for the simple reason this is a very bumpy circuit, and if the air of the car is made unstable by running in the draft of another car, well, that can really knock your confidence as a driver or really affect the behaviour of the car through the corners. As goodness me, that's why our driver's going wide there. That's Jack Werrell getting it wrong, going into turn number 10, just putting his rear left wheel off circuit. And indeed, this is in the final practice session right now. It's not even in qualifying as another driver gets it wrong, and that is Samuel Hooper, who decides to say, well, that's not Samuel Hooper, my apologies. I think that's Joseph Loke, in fact, who's decided to say hello to our driver who was stranded there at turn number 10. And indeed, a number of them getting it wrong, and it's very easy to get it wrong around here at Oulton Park, whether in the simulator or in the real world. If you've ever tuned into racing at Oulton Park, I can assure you, whether it's British GT all the way through to touring car, drivers do have a tendency to push the limits and find those limits and then some. But as we do wait to go into qualifying here, we do say hello in the chat to a number of you there, all tuning in, which is great to see. We can see Sydney there saying hello and asking about the music, and we can also see a UKSR's Timo there clarifying. We say hello to Timo as well, saying about the music. Indeed, we use a little bit of retro wave introduction and music, and we have something a little bit more dramatically themed when we do kick off the show. But it's the case that all of the music we do use when we're waiting to get started with the broadcast, or indeed in our race 2 and race 3 transitions, is all retro wave music. And if you do want to know more about that, be sure to drop me a message in the UK Sim Racing Discord, and I can can tell you exactly where all that music comes from. Andy, very grateful to the website, although I can't remember the name. In fact, the website is Audio Beats. It is the case. Very grateful to Audio Beats for providing the music copyright free and free of charge. But we also say hello to Medmo there, also to Diesel TTV. Also, we do have, I believe, Nathan Willoughby there. We've also got Baru. Well, it's good to see you all tuning in and now waiting to go racing. And Medmo, never been an open wheel guy, but these F4s do tempt me to give it a go. Why not give it a go? Go for it. You've got nothing to lose and do enjoy it. And we also say hello to 306 Rally there, wishing everybody good luck. And we also say Sydney there, not recalling the track temperature, but I remarked the car tends to be similar to a Formula 3's in temperature, less than 40 degrees Celsius, and more similar to Skip with temperatures at 40 degrees Celsius or higher. I think Skip there referring to Skip Barber, of course, a similar type of vehicle, albeit presenting its own unique challenge. Now, what does a driver really need here is perhaps the question you may be asking in order to be able to run strongly at Oulton Park. Well, what a driver needs here is the ability to hook up those apexes absolutely spot on. As we do see here, Dan Blackwell making his way on around. I believe that's a slight mistake with Dan Blackwell's name there, and we will just iron that out for you because his first name is not G, as in just the initial G. He does, in fact, have the name Dan as his first name. And as we make that rectification, I think also Ollie Dimley there, and that's sometimes what just goes wrong with our broadcasting software, but those two name errors have now been fixed. I'll have you know, it is the case that it is one of those situations where Dan Blackwell is demonstrated as he rolls his way through the chicane. It's one of those situations where you want to hook up those apexes as soon as possible. You want to get nice and tight so you can get on the power immediately and go charging on through. And as he comes roaring on through and up towards turn 10 here, turn 10 is one of those corners where you can do it in one of three different ways. You can firstly choose to go for an early apex. You can secondly choose to go for a late apex, because there are two apex curves to turn number 10, or you can go for a combination of the two where you put the car in the middle effectively. Some drivers prefer an early apex, but I'm personally an early apex man when it comes to turn number 10. Some drivers prefer it much later. We'll have to wait and see all the different styles coming together as we do look from our gold driver here at Blackwell to our fastest driver in this final practice session at the moment, and that is Dominic Roberts here, the privateer, making his way down the back straight in towards the turn 5 chicane as he rolls his way through 5 and 6. It is the case in the number 44 car here, perhaps inspired a little bit by Lewis Hamilton, of course, around the 44 on the car, albeit it's the case. I'm not going to say anything about the qualifying session at Austrian Formula 1. You're going to have to tune into that. No spoilers there. But we may, well, we're not going to be having any through goes Hamilton moments, but we may have a few major overtaking moments in this Formula 4 series, and you never know, we might see something just as dramatic and exciting. I'm sure we are going to. But as we see Roberts here coming to the end of a practice lap, it is the case most of our drivers out of circuit at the moment, getting in those final practice laps here, trying to get into that rhythm. Of course, it's all well and good when you practice outside of race day, but nothing quite compares to trying to settle those pre-race nerves by doing a little bit of last-minute practice. As we see Michael Kettlewell here, the privateer from Silver Class, rolling his way through the right hand of turn number 4, the hairpin, and gets it very wrong and goes wide, and in returns he tries to get the power down there. Well, that was only going to end up one way, and that was with the rear left tyre saying I haven't got grip, and the right tyre saying I've got plenty of grip, and therefore the car spinning round there as he had one tyre on the grass and one tyre on the asphalt. But as he continues to try and bring it around here, it is the case the driver with the snap-on advertisement on the side trying to get the car back together, as we do see Daniel Nags here making his way through what is the final corner and going to the end of one of his very last practice laps. We are still only moments away from going racing. Not too long to go now as the time is ticking down, 1.5 minutes still going. And whilst we do have to have that little bit of a patient build-up, we were saying what really constitutes a winning combination here at Oulton Park. One of the other things is knowing when you have experienced the limits around here. This is a circuit, as we said earlier, one that does not take any prisoners, and if you push too hard, you are going to feel it very quickly indeed. Having raced GT3s around here on the simulator myself, I can tell you that in a GT3 I'm more likely to play it safe than rather go over aggressive around here. And you can imagine these Formula 4s, these open wheel cars, it is the case that our drivers will look to play it safe as well. These cars are very quick in terms of acceleration, relying a lot on their aerodynamics to give them that grip. And right now Daniel Nags looking to find out where the grip is as he rolls his way through the corners here of turns 5, 6 and 7 in short succession. As we look from Nags all the way up to Paul Smithhurst, who's currently P6 in the final practice session standings here, and you can see there the deltas in the times, albeit I think Dominic Roberts' lap there may be a little bit invalidated, that 1 minute 10.176. And that is why the limitations we do have, by the way, with a replay file that we're looking at here today, is the fact that in qualifying, if a driver does have an invalidated lap and they still cross the timeline with an invalidated lap, it will still be registered as a qualifying lap. We'll only know when we go to the grid for race number 1. But I get the feeling that Roberts may have skipped the turn 5 chicane, and that's why he's 8 seconds faster than everybody. I think Loke really is the driver with the fastest time right now, as we do see the privateer rolling his way down through turn number 3. So that's something to watch out for. And the other thing as well is we unfortunately do not have the ability to be able to give you mid-race replays. We can't cut to an event that happened earlier on a replay file, but it will be the case from round number 4 when we're bringing you everything live. We will have those replays in there as well. But enough about replays and whatnot. It is time for us to make our way over to the qualifying session. And it is the case, we've got 15 minutes. We'll have all of our drivers out on circuit, and who will be able to come out on top come the end of it. Let's find out, as we have already got a number of our drivers absolutely charging out the pits. It is race day here, of course, at Oulton Park, and as they all make the way on out, we look to the blimp camera here, and you can see already so many drivers all trying to charge out as quickly as possible, all trying to get out there and get as many laps in before it is the case that they don't have really track position. And the thing is, of course, track position is so critical around here to get the ideal qualifying lap. We didn't really see that at Donington Park. We saw a lot of drivers stacking up at Donington Park National and trying to stay within the toe of one another. But here today, as everybody frantically makes their way around, well, the lead driver at the moment, as we're to understand it, I believe it is Jack Werrell making his way out of the island hairpin and now down the back straight. And it is the case that Werrell here, well, he is looking to be leading everybody on around right now, really leading the pack through, and he will have clear air for the purposes of his qualifying lap. And behind him, we've got the whole cascade of drivers here, and I do wonder when we get out of turn number 10 and up towards 11 and 12, whether we'll see our drivers start to just space out a little bit and see some weaving from side to side to try and get some tyre temperature, some sidewall temperature in particular. But right now, it does look as though Werrell there does have one driver right behind him. That's the number 3 driver of Harry Fox. Oh, goodness me. And Werrell now, I think, succumbing a little bit to looking too much in his mirrors at Harry Fox coming on through. But it will be Harry Fox who takes us around for the first flying lap of this qualifying session as he makes his way out of 11 and through the kink of 12. And we now ride on board for the first flying lap. Coming across that timeline and heading down towards turn number 1 here. He'll be dabbing on the brakes and rolling the car through into dip in the apex curve and immediately getting back on the throttle as he now charges through the kink of 2, and as he makes his way downhill, braking for turn number 3. Just as he passes the bump, they're going as late as he dares down to 4th gear. He'll get him back on the throttle, sliding the car through turn number 3, and now charging up towards the hairpin here. The fastest run up towards the corner, and now braking into the turn 4 hairpin, coming all the way down to 1st gear. The slowest corner on circuit, gets a nice exit there, uses the runoff space afforded by the exit curving, and now making his way up towards the turn 5 chicane. Fast and furious as he goes on up, and now looking for his brake marker here, looking for that 100-metre board and braking just after, braking about 80 metres and rolling the car through, coming down to 2nd and back up to 3rd to get the car to rotate through turn 6 and just giving the car a little bit more lift on the front as he now makes his way through 7 and charges up to the double left of turns 8 and 9 as he makes his way underneath the billboard there through 8 into 9 flat out. Now braking for turn 10. Does he go for an early or a late apex? He goes for the double apex there. Nice run by Fox, and as he heads down towards turn at number 11, now the final major braking zone on the lap, he looks to his left-hand side looking for his brake marker there, braking at about 125 metres from the corner, takes a nice amount of apex curve, and now charging on out of the corner and heading down towards the checkered flag line, or the timing line, if we say. It is the case that Fox there putting in a reasonable time, although I think it is the case our qualifying times may have been listed on that left-hand board there. Limitation again on the information, but we do have a 19.694 there from Fox, and a good lap indeed. Although we'll have to wait and see if those times do get updated as this qualifying session does go on. I think they may be bleeding over from the practice session. Let's make their way on out here. It is the case we do look to Ollie Pimley here, who, as he makes his way on around, currently the fastest driver in the gold class, rolling his way through turn number 3 and heading up towards turn number 4. It is the case that Pimley are looking smooth so far, albeit we're looking smooth. It's normally a good sign in the Formula 4. Indeed, in any car, sometimes the fastest, oh, he's not going to be smooth there. He's not going to be happy with that one, as locking up the brakes and having to take a little bit of a weave there behind the driver in front of him. I think it was the case that the number 21 driver just simply not happy with where the driver in front of him decided to put the brakes on. That's number 142 driver. If we just find out who that is, I believe that is Chris Hitchin just in front of him there. But Chris Hitchin, oh goodness me, Chris Hitchin losing the rear of the car through turn number 7 there, just stepping on the power a little bit too soon and not letting the car settle down. And as we look back to Ollie Pimley here, making his way through the kink of 9. Well, this lap has been slightly scuppered as he rolls his way through the right-hander of turn number 10. Got a car that was just returned to the circuit there. That was Austin William Campbell, who just moved out of the way in time. And as they make their way into the braking zone here, well, I think Pimley will be feeling as though this second flying lap has been severely impacted by that moment into the turn 4 hairpin. But we'll have to wait and see. Indeed, he was improving in subsectors 1 and 2, but after the lap has gone downhill, in the 121.441 for his efforts. As meanwhile in the silver class we do look to Sydney Million here, and it is the case that right now, Sydney Millen I should say, not Million, there's no I, there's no second I in their name. It is the case that Millen right now rolling down through turn number 3, getting a little bit out of sorts there through turn number 3. You can see just a bit of understeer creeping in on corner entry, and now heading out of turn 3 and up towards turn number 4. It is the case the number 13 driver, that number unlucky for some, but it doesn't look as though it's going to be unlucky for the silver driver right now. Currently P3 in class as they make their way down towards turns 5, 6, 7. Of course, up towards the very tricky chicane here. We want to get through as quickly as possible, but balance the car on out. And in terms of the track at the moment, we do have track temperature gradually going up, and it is the case, as you can see from the circuit map in the top right corner of your screen, it is very clustered as our drivers continue to push around here, and some drivers finding some clear air. Harry Fox in particular, you can see HF right at the top of the circuit map making their way towards the end of the lap. They found quite a bit of clear track, whereas other drivers are standing close formation. And right now, as we continue to look at Millen on the screen, you can see it is the case that they do have, well, the F4 drivers trying to cut up the inside into turn number 11, and now this is where it gets awkward. In fact, they've backed out, whoever that was trying to creep up the inside, but Millen goes deep there into turn number 11, overextended under braking, and that's going to be a lap which could have been better, and it wasn't to be at the end of the day, as we see Ollie Pimley improves there to a 4.68, a 19.468, we should clarify, leader of the gold class in this qualifying session. And meanwhile, Millen still got a lot to improve as we do look from P3 in the silver class to P2 in the silver class, and that is Kevin Burke, as right now we see Burke making his way up through turns 8 and 9. But as he comes charging on round here and up towards turn number 10, it is the case right now. Burke looking good, and to be fair, Kevin Burke, for those of you who tuned in to round number 1, you'll recall that Kevin Burke was really the surprise driver in the silver class, in a class which saw anybody who led the races fall by the wayside. It really seemed as though the lead of the silver class was cursed for some reason at Donington Park. It was the case that Burke in the end just picked up major points through consistency, and he's doing again today, much like what he did the last time out. Of course, we are expecting him to be in that rivalry with Paul Boucherat, as it is the case that Burke really wasn't as fast as Boucherat necessarily over a single lap at Donington, but he was the more consistent driver and just seemed to have the sixth sense for when an incident was going to occur. Well, I don't think he had a sixth sense there with regards to spinning the car on the apex of turn 3, but very well avoided there by drivers who were coming on through, as we do now look to Alex Lewis here, and we can see that Lewis currently at P12 overall, P10 in the platinum class. A difficult day in qualifying so far compared to his peers, and he also does have 2 gold drivers between himself and Insight and the next driver in the platinum class ahead in terms of those qualifying times, as we reach the halfway point here of the qualifying session. 7.5 minutes complete by the time Lewis gets down to the braking zone for turn number 3, and 7.5 minutes plus the final laps to go. But as he rolls his way on through here, it is the case that Alex Lewis right now has got a lot of work to do if he wants to improve here and gain a little bit more. But meanwhile, I can tell you with regards to our gold class in particular, it is the case that right now our gold class is actually quite sparse around the circuit. We've got a few gold drivers located together, making their way out of the turn 4 hairpin down towards turn 5. We do have a couple still in the pit, and then a couple making their way through turn number 10. And, well, we're just trying to find some of the ones who are making their way through turn number 10. Well, this is not one of the ones going through turn 10. He's making his way through turn 7. And it's Chris Edisford here, as we do see him making his way uphill through turns 8 and 9. And Edisford looking smooth so far, but we'll have to wait and see how it plays out in practice as he rolls his way up through the corner of turn number 10. He goes a little bit wide. They're taking an earlier initial apex compared to the latter apex, but still brings it together nicely, all said and done. And well, he makes his way into that braking zone. We'll surely be right on board with Edisford for a flying lap in the hands of the gold driver. And as he comes out of 11 up towards 12, here we go onto another flying lap here, as brought to you by Chris Edisford. His way across that timeline. Of course, look at that brake marker on the left, using those boards, those advertisement boardings on the left really as a brake marker, and rolling out they're using the maximum amount of whip to the exit. Nicely done. Now through 2 and into 3, coming down the brakes. They're just balancing the car. Just a little bit of understeer creeping in there when he went to turn the car in. You could just see how he missed the apex curve by the smallest of margins, just inches between that and the ideal line. And as he brakes his way into turn 4 hairpin, decides to go for a late apex here, and in fact never makes the apex, but instead really just goes a bit wide and carries a lot of momentum through. There's a nice line there by Edisford. Now heading down the back straight and up towards the turn 5 chicane. You can see here looking for that brake marker, braking at 90 metres there, an early braking zone to get a nice tight run through the apexes of the chicane. That'll bode well now for his run through 7 as he drifts the car through turn number 7, where he won't want to be doing that. He'll want to keep it as smooth and flat to the floor as possible. And as he comes through turn 8 and in towards line, the cloud comes over, meaning it gets a little bit darker. I can assure you it's not a grayscale filter. And as he rolls his way through turn 10 here, you can see the hesitation and the very early double apex there at turn number 10. In fact, Edison after that slide at turn 7 just had a little bit of the wind knocked out of his sails, and he'll be now building up for another lap here, just really trying to nail his initial apex as he takes too much momentum, and into the side of him that is a crash with another driver, and well, we're trying to figure out who that is, but it is the case that Edison has jumped to the pit, and that is a disaster for the pair of them. As now we do look here to Ollie Pimley, who goes across the line and does not improve. Edison, they're getting it wrong at the final corner. The driver behind so closely packed in. It is the case that the two drivers came together as he makes his way down. I think that might have actually been Lee Aberdeen who was in the contact there, although I may be wrong. It is the case that we can see Ollie Pimley right now just looking very happy, leading that gold class in his qualifying session, albeit only by 300ths ahead of Jack Werrell. And here is his main rival in the gold class in this qualifying session. And these two, Pimley and Werrell, seem to be in a world of their own. And we did see at Donington, to be fair, that our top gold drivers did manage to out-qualify a good number of the platinum class and really put themselves in amongst the top class as they made their way through that qualifying session and into the races as well. It led to one of the most awkward sets of battles that I've seen in a long time in my commentary history, I must say, when we had two gold drivers battling with two platinum drivers, and they weren't settling down either pair with regards to battling within their own class or battling with their opposite class peers. But it was fantastic racing all the same, and as they make the way on around, it is the case that we do say hello and thank you to Penguin Co to subscribe at tier 1. And just a quick reminder there, ladies and gentlemen, if you do have a free Amazon Prime Twitch Prime subscription that comes with your Amazon Prime service, then why not invest it on the UK Sim Racing Twitch channel to subscribe and get yourself some credits to go towards purchasing league entries for UK Sim Racing. Every little helps, and indeed in return we're giving you a little bit back for subscribing. But it's still, we can see here the driver who's giving it all right now, not just a little bit but giving it everything, is Werrell, as he wants to try and take that gold pole position of a Pimley as he rolls his way on down. And that question there from Medmo, did somebody throw Sobel over the track? That is a very good question. With the cloud coming over here, it is the case that the track temperature is still very high. Oh goodness me, Werrell there takes a spin at turn 7, but the problem is, as we see somebody going very wide there, and that is Joseph Loke, who's decided to do a bit of a rallycross line. And well, my goodness, I think that was perhaps one of the best catches coming out of turn 7 I've seen in a Formula 4, in the fact he just completely held the car together. And well, if he's not a rallycross driver, he might want to consider subscribing as one, for the simple reason that was a very nice line that Joseph Loke took there. 10 points for style as he makes his way down into the braking zone for turn number 11. And also right now he's looking very firmly on course to take that pole position in the platinum class. Although I say firmly, it's by 200ths over Jerome Lamy. That's how close it is between the two of them. And as they roll their way out of turn number, as he rolls his way across the timeline and through turn number 1 once again, right now it does look as though Loke is on a level. And I do wonder, with the fact that so many drivers are struggling now in the latter half of this qualifying session to find the grip out on circuit, it may be the case that, well, it's those situations whereby they haven't got any more lap time there. They're pushing hard, but they can't quite find it. And I've just had it informed to me, I've had it passed to me by Nathan Willoughby in the Twitch chat, that it is the case that Joseph Loke drives Formula 4 in real life. Well, to be fair, it is the case. That's fantastic to hear, first and foremost. And also on top of that, it is the case he's translating that real life driving into the simulator, or is it the other way around? I think it swings both ways at the end of the day. And I do remember somebody saying to me, and I think it's a great analogue with regards to sim racing, it may not be real in terms of taking the cars out on the circuit, but it's almost like you're preparing for a marathon on a treadmill. It's the case running on the treadmill isn't the same as the marathon, but it comes pretty close and gives you a similar experience in terms of preparing for the real thing. And right now, Loke doing everything right in the simulator, it would seem, as he makes his way down towards turn number 11. But looking from a driver who's succeeded in the Platinum class to one who's having a difficult day at the moment, here is Cy Anthony right now in P9 overall and in said class, as he rolls his way out of 3 and up towards 4 with less than a minute to go in this qualifying session. By the time he reaches the turn 5 chicane, it is the case that Cy Anthony, I think, will be looking at P9 or potentially P8 if he can find a couple of hundreds versus Austin William Campbell. But to be fair, we have seen typically in any series that Cy Anthony has competed in, it is the case where it's in the GT3s or the Formula 4s, he typically isn't as strong in qualifying as he is in terms of race trim. He seems to have a knack for bringing the results about over the course of race distances, and as he rolls his way there out of turn 7 and goes a bit wide, that's going to be a disallowed lap for certain. It's the case he will have one more lap after this. And well, speaking of remaining laps, we do see Paul Boucherat here, currently our pole position driver in the silver class. He makes his way through turn number 4. He's poled by a tenth at the moment, a tenth and almost a half. And as he makes his way out of the hairpin, looking very strong right now is the driver with the Renault style livery as he makes his way down towards turn number 5. I believe that's the Renault logo on the side. I may be mistaken. It may be the case my eyesight's deceiving me, but right now, regardless of whether it's Renault or not, it's a rather catchy livery. In fact, that's not the Renault logo on the side. Do apologise, but right now it is that yellow livery. As we get to the end of qualifying session, in fact, we cut straight to the gridding for the race. There's no more laps available, and let's take you through that grid for race number 1. So after qualifying, it is the case in round 2 of the Formula 4 Championship as presented by UK Sim Racing here at Oulton Park. Joseph Lowe taking pole position by 200ths ahead of Jerome Lamy. On the second row, Lee Aberdeen and Dominic Roberts, followed by Paul Smithhurst and Harry Fox on row number 3. Jack Atkinson and Austin William Campbell on row 4, with Cy Anthony starting off row 5, and then our pole position driver in the gold class, Ollie Pimley, P10. Jack Werrell, P11, and Alex Lewis, P12, make up row number 6. Behind them, we do have Jonathan Hitchin and Dan Blackwell making up row 7. Nathan Willoughby and Joe Newman on row at number 8. Then we have Sam Congreve and what is Samuel Hooper, albeit reversed there in terms of their position on row number 9. Then our pole position driver in the silver class, Paul Boucherat, he'll be starting P19. He'll have Kevin Burke alongside the two rivals in the silver class. They'll be going toe-to-toe again here today. Chris Edisford and Sydney Millen make up row number 11, with Chris Hitchin and Graham Nicol on row number 12. And then behind them we have Roxanne Marshall and Duncan Watts on row 13, Daniel Nags and what is Craig Tillerston on row number 14, and our final row, Michael Kettlewell and Harvey Blair making up that grid of 30. Well, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we are ready to go racing, and we are just forming the grid right now as we look to the blimp camera here, and it is the case, whilst they're partially obscured by the run out of turn number 11 up through 12, the grid is almost set, and we are now almost ready to go racing for our first 20 minutes of racing here today in round 2 of the championship. And as we do just wait to go racing, it is a slight delay due to some drivers still getting put to the grid. We do have that 2-minute countdown, of course, and we're almost at the end of the 2 minutes, but then it will be lights out and away we go any moment shortly. And it's lights out and away we go for race number 1 at Oulton Park as Joseph Lowe gets a good start and Jerome Lamy covers off the outside to inside lines as there's contact further behind. That's Ollie Pimley off already as they all make their way through turn number 1, and Alex Lewis as well into the wall. A number of drivers have been involved in a major incident further back, but as they come charging down the hill through turn 2 and into 3, it is the case those who have survived are making it through okay, but Sam Congreve there battling with Joe Newman straight away as it is the case the Platinum driver under pressure as they come charging down towards turn number 4 for the first time of asking. It's a scramble into the hairpin, a lock up of the brakes there for what is, I think that is Jack Werrell, the Altitude Esports driver, getting caught on the inside and locking the brakes up on cold brakes and cold tyres, and now it's going to be a drag race here, but he's lost a lot of momentum going out of the turn 4 hairpin as he makes his way into turn 5. It is the case he's safe and sound for now as Joe Newman here battling with, I believe that is Dan Blackwell. Somebody's gone straight on there, and as they make the way out of the corner, it is the case that right now Joe Newman's stuck behind Dan Blackwell as they roll on out, and that is Cy Anthony who's had the off. I think that's Science who's had the off and rejoin. I may be wrong with that. That's Lee Aberdeen. Oh, goodness me. And that is, well, that's a car sideways there. And that is Samuel Hooper into the water, turn number 8, and with a broken wheel and rear suspension. His race is going to be a jump to the pits. There's no doubt about that. But meanwhile, we must look from the drivers who've been in the wars to the driver who's had the good start. And he comes to the end of lap number 1. It is Joseph Loke here, who leads after 1 lap. Only 3 tenths of a second clear of Jerome Lamey in P2, followed by Dominic Roberts in P3. Paul Smith P4, then Harry Fox P5, followed by Jack Atkinson P6. Austin William Campbell in P7, then Jonathan Hitch in P8. All platinum drivers so far. Then we have our gold leader in P9 overall of Dan Blackwell, followed by Joe Newman in P10, his gold rival. Then Sam Congreve P11, Nathan Willoughby in P12, and then we've got Roxanne Marshall P13, followed by Kevin Burke, your silver driver P14, having got ahead of Millen at the start of the race, and Paul Boustrat being in the wars. He's one of those drivers involved in that major incident on the start-finish straight on the opening lap. But then we have Duncan Watts P16, Paul Boustrat P17, but he has been able to get that car back out of the situation, and now he's going hunting once again. Michael Kettlewell P18, Chris Hitchin P19, and then Chris Eddersford P20, completing your top 20. And then we've got Jack Werrell a bit further back, and then everybody else further down has had an incident on the open lap and is now trying to get themselves back up to speed. But looking from the back of the main running class to what is at the front of the field, it is the case that Loke is gradually dropping Lamey here, and Lamey now under a bit of pressure from what is Roberts behind as they make their way through turn number 10 here. But again, it's going to be a game of patience, I suspect, rather than one built out of what will be charging on through and just trying to get the places immediately. In the fact that whilst they may start off strong here, some drivers, the pace may fall away as time goes on. As we do change that gap, we can see here the amount of places being gained, and look at Roxanne Marshall, who's gained 12 places at the start of this race. Marshall has literally flown up through the field, I think avoided all the carnage, and well, credit to Roxanne in the fact that she's been able to get it done. Oh, goodness me, and that's 2 drivers who've been involved in a major incident. That's Dan Blackwell, and I do believe that is Jonathan Hitchin as well. I'm not sure what's happened there. So we've got a driver coming into the pits, but my goodness, well, it is the case that the racing continues and the carnage with it. Albeit these things do happen, of course, in racing at Oulton Park. As we said earlier, it is the case, very close in terms of the race, and it's a very narrow circuit as well in Formula 4s because they're open wheel as well. If you make contact with another driver, it's very likely both of you are in the wars, and it's not going to be light damage. If there is going to be damage, it's going to be heavy. And speaking of curses, here's Kevin Burke, who was leading the silver class, and what did we tell you at Donington? That lead of the silver class was cursed, and the curse seems to have hit Kevin Burke as he makes his way back up to speed, and he's dropped all the way down to P4 in the silver class, P15. But before we were looking at him, we did briefly cut away from Jerome Lamey, who's got Dominic Roberts of pressure behind, and as they make their way into the braking zone, it is the case that Roberts not able to get the move done there, but Paul Smith in return in P4. He's got Harry Fox close behind. As we ride on board here, Harry Fox, he tries to find his way up into P4 in class and overall as they come charging across that timeline. 3 laps complete, plenty more to go here at Oulton Park in race number 1. And there's Smith he drifts a little bit wide on corner entry, but Harry Fox, I think, hesitating, thinking about the longer game here, thinking it's 20 minutes, not 2 minutes. And as they roll the way down to turn number 3, it is the case of Privateer right now, just keeping it smart and sensible as he rolls his way on through as he comes charging out right now. I can see Harry Fox there saying about changing his team name. We'll talk more about that later, Harry, but right now it is the case as he goes braking into turn number 4. It's one of the situations where Smithers locking up the brakes, and well, Fox not able to capitalise and coming charging on out as they head down towards what is turn number 4. But as they come down into the braking zone, it's one of those situations whereby Fox just under that difficulty, and indeed it is Atkinson who is closing up behind him as the UK sim racing driver staying right there with him, and indeed with the pair of them as they roll up the hill and come charging on around. Now, as we see Atkinson here trying to put that pressure on, albeit really a bit more of an observer right now compared to Smithers and Fox, who are right in the thick of it. Here's one of the situations whereby Atkinson could pounce at a given moment should he get close enough and they take one another off the circuit. But right now, it's going to be the case. The test is paid, and Fox goes up the inside here versus Smithers as they make the way out of the corner. It is the situation whereby they roll on out. Who's going to gain the advantage here? It's Fox on the inside, we've got Smithers on the outside, and as they come into the right hand, it's Smithers who still stays ahead by a small margin as they come roaring on out, and now down towards turn number 3 they go once again, and here's Atkinson trying to get the move on as well as they come charging out the left-hander at turn number 3. No chance there for Atkinson. He has to wait patiently as they roll their way out of the corner, and instead now they head up towards the turn for a hairpin, and still they stay as they were. Fox takes a beat. Atkinson looks to try and get on the power, but he finds a face full of Fox, and indeed now he has to just wait for that opportunity to arise as they come come rolling on out and down towards the turn 5 chicane. They make the way in, and Atkinson takes a little bit of a peek there, but no way through for Atkinson. Instead, he has to wait and look for another opportunity later on in the lap if he's going to find one. But as they come out of the corners here, it is the situation whereby right now Jack Atkinson, he's looking menacing, but he's not close enough to become the menace he wants to be. Instead, he's just waiting in the wings. But we look from him to Sam Congreve a little bit further back right now. The Platinum driver, P10 overall, P9 in the Platinum class. It is the case he's chasing after Roxanne Marshall as they make the way down towards turn number 10. And well, it is the case that for Congreve having a bit of difficulty in terms of being able to get back in the hunt here. Marshall keeping it, but in terms of pace, and Congreve there almost losing it coming out of turn 10. My goodness, that was very close to the edge of what was adhesion as he rolls his way through turn number 11 right now. I think his heart might be in his mouth a little bit and then some, as we are hearing that Lamey in P2 is having the occasional disconnection with regards to his connectivity in the race. You can see him fading in our existence as we cut back to the leaders, but he's closed back up to Joseph Loke here. And well, you've got to feel for Roberts behind, who right now has got the very hard task of trying to figure out where Lamey's going to be every couple of seconds, and that's not what you want to be as a sim race, and the fact you have to try and guess where the driver in front of you is going to reappear when they disappear in and out. But meanwhile, speaking of not disappearing, it is a case that Smithhurst and Fox, this battle's not disappearing. They go side by side into the turn 5 chicane, and it is Fox who goes round the outside and gains the position there inside to outside, and Harry Fox moves up to P4 overall and P4 in the Platinum class as now they make the way through turns 8 and 9 and up towards 10 very rapidly. But as they come charging on through, well, we see a comeback here from Smithhurst. Will we see Atkinson now get involved? Atkinson has been waiting for some time. And as they come roaring on down towards turn number 11, no change at this point in time, but they are all really now starting to get on one another's nerves with regards to trying to make those moves. And speaking of battles building, we've also got here a battle building for P2 in the gold class. It's Chris Edisford who is in that P2 position. Behind him is Werrell, and it's Edisford who's trying to find his way past Burke as they make the way into the right-hander of turn number 10. And as they do, that is Burke, Kevin Burke in the silver class there, who finds himself in a bit of a difficult situation, which is he does want to give up track position because he's got Nicole behind. But as they make the way into the right-hander here of turn number 11, it is the case that Burke there does give the position to Jack Werrell in the end, and now Jack Werrell from Altitude Esports can go hunting as they make the way across the timeline and on to another lap, onto lap, what is for them lap number 7, as they roll their way through the right-hander of turn number 1. But meanwhile, a little bit further back in the pitch, that's Duncan Watts, who's had an off-track very briefly, albeit Duncan Watts is a lap down on the leaders right now after the instance on the opening laps. And we can see here Jack Werrell chasing after Chris Edisford, but not finding the way on through at this time. Indeed, having to wait patiently to go for that move as the race heads towards the halfway stage. We still got quite a bit of time, of course, as they roll their way on through, and as they now get a speed, and that is Chris Edisford who's taken a spin there. As we were just looking briefly at our data screen, but it is the case that Chris Edisford spinning, and well, that is going to drop it a long way back, and Werrell gains the position there without issues. The UK sim racing driver has had a difficult day, and as he makes his way now back up to speed here, it is going to be a very, very tricky situation now for Edison. The fact he's got to find his way past Burke, albeit we've got a spin there in front, and that's Watts, that's Duncan Watts, who's had a spin coming out to turn number 7, and a lot of drivers here really struggling for grip. But I'll tell you one driver who's not struggling for grip right now as Edison goes around Burke again, and Burke they're not putting up a fight, just I think saying, go on then Chris, go on through, you've done this once, you can do it again. But we do look to Dominic Roberts here, who has, after all, found his way past Lamey, and it is the case, we can see Roberts right now up to P2 overall in the Platinum class and chasing after Joseph Loke. Now, we have seen a number of you in the chat with regards to the Platinum class there looking white almost, rather than it should be a little bit more towards blue. We will get that fixed for race number 2 just to avoid any confusion. So if you're wondering about that, we have noticed it. Don't worry about it. We'll fix it, ladies and gentlemen. But right now we stay here focused on the racing action as we've reached the halfway point of race number 1 here. And would you believe it, this is only race 1 of 3 races here today at Oulton Park, and already well, the Cheshire Circuit has created an absolute cataclysm of racing as they make the way towards what is the end of this race. It's still 10 minutes to go, and right now it is Joseph Loke who leads overall in the Platinum class by what is less than 0.6 of a second ahead of Dominic Roberts. And then you have Jerome Lamey, who now seems to have settled down with regards to seems to have settled down with regards to the connectivity issues, but he's also settled down into P3 rather than being in P2, and he'll want that place back. And speaking of settling down, it is the case that his 3 Platinum drivers who refuse to settle down, it is what is Fox ahead of Spiffers and then Atkinson behind, but Jack Atkinson, as they roll the way on through the corner, is a little bit further back. He does seem to be having this difficulty, Jack Atkinson, with staying with Fox and Spiffers, but I think this might be a little bit of preservation. I think he'll know that P6 will still do well in the championship for race number 1, given those points for all 3 races here. And instead he's waiting to see if his 2 rivals in front make any mistakes as they come charging on out there, and as they make the way down towards turn number 5 once again. This patience may prove critical, but keep in mind Austin William Campbell is closing gradually here. Is the P7 driver in the 555 machine as he rolls his way out to turn number 7 and up the hill, and as he comes on through, it is the case. We can see there Tiddleston staying clear as Campbell comes on through. Tiddleston in the silver class car, they're down in what is P5 in the class. So many of our silver has been involved in incidents at the start, but speaking of battles, it is the case. We're wondering if Loke would be under pressure. He is under pressure because he looked from the gearbox here. Joseph Loke side by side behind him. That's Laney on the inside who backs out immediately before they get to turn 1, and it's Dominic Roberts who's in the driving seat trying to make the offensive on Joseph Loke for the lead of this race. Now, can Loke make the P2, P3 drives battle for position, or will he have to deal with Roberts, and Laney will be the one who takes the patient approach, much like Atkinson in the battle for P4? Well, if I was Lamy at this point, I would let Roberts try and put the pressure on Lowe and just sit there and watch. Because if he gets too involved, and goodness me, and I say that and it's the case, we won't be getting involved in this battle anymore. He's just put a wheel onto the grass under braking into turn number 4, and the rear's kicked out, and now it's the case that Jerome Lamy finds himself leading a pack of 4 Formula 4s for what is the battle for P3 position. As you can see, they all make the way down the back straight here into the braking zone for what is turn number 5. They all come on through here in quick succession, but it's almost as if with Curse Lamy, it must be said, from going from battling for the lead to battling for P3, and now really being under pressure as they come out of turn number 7 and up the hill through 8 and 9. But as they roar their way on through at this point, I also wonder whether this will give some breathing room to Loke and Roberts. But speaking of which, Dominic Roberts has taken the lead of this race. Now, I've had it whispered in my ear, it is the case that Loke had an off track at the turn 5 chicane. He went straight on, and therefore it is the case that Loke had dropped a position, and Roberts is now your race leader with 7 minutes to go here and plenty of battling still to go. And as they roll their way up through the quarters, coming through turn number 1 once again, and now for Roberts it's all about managing this race and also managing the traffic ahead. It may be a 20-minute race with a number of drivers succumbing to incidents early on in this race. It is the situation whereby they will now have back markers, quote unquote, who they'll need to find the way on through, and those blue flags will be waving. But at the same time, it is the case that trying to get past somebody here, even with the blue flags waving, can be difficult unless it's done on the straight. So you can see Dominic Roberts there literally tucking into the toe of Kettlewell as he pulled out the way to get a little bit of straight line speed down. Loke, who's closing very aggressively once again, and as they make the way through turn 5, 6, 7, it almost as if Loke here prefers to be the hunter rather than the hunted, because as soon as he's fallen behind Roberts, he's just taken that pace up to another level. And Roberts here, I think, is going to be under pressure into turn number 11, if not before. As they come into turn number 10 here, you can see Loke put himself on the outside, but it's so close, literally a hair's width between the front wing of Loke and the rear of Roberts. As they make the way down towards turn number 11, Loke's going to pin his rival to the inside, under braking they go, and as they make the way through the right-hander here, Roberts still holds position, but for how long before there's another battle into a quarter here, as it's the case that Joseph Loke literally left, right and centre, all over the back of Roberts. They come across the timing line, it's Roberts who's on the inside once again. Loke pins him there and swings out the last possible moment, literally Loke leaving it to the last possible minute here, and as they come down through 2 and into 3, it's the case that Robert has to go defensive into 3. This is a good compromise his run up towards the hairpin, there's no doubt about that. But as in return, Bloke now stays very close to the back of Roberts as they come charging up towards the braking zone, but no way through here. Is the case it becomes narrow under braking, and as they roll the way through the hairpin, 5 minutes left on the clock. This battle for the overall win only continues, with Lamy the best part of 3.5 seconds behind. It is a case, it's a battle for 2, and Lamy right now is still having to hold off Fox, Smithers and Atkinson, as we can see Jerome Lamy here in the picture now. He's the focus of our cameraman's attention as they flow through the chicane. Harry Fox just behind here, and well, Fox, I think it's the case that for him, he's been enjoying the races so far, but he'd love to be on that podium when all is said and done. We'll have to wait and see if he's able to achieve that, however. however, as they roll their way down through turn 8 and 9 and into 10. But right now they stay as they were as they head down towards 11. But these are the closest battles out on circuit, so we're going to stay with them, ladies and gentlemen. Everything else seems to have settled down in the gold and the silver classes to a major extent. It's the platinum class where the wars are kicking off, and right now it's another battle into turn 1. It's Roberts on the outside this time, Loke on the offensive on the inside, and Loke retakes the lead here with 4 minutes remaining, but he oversteps it coming out the corner. Roberts is back on the inside into 2. He'll find his way to the outside into 3. They go side by side through the downhill run, and as they emerge, it's Roberts who leads, but only by a sliver. As they head up towards turn number 4, Loke tucks back in here. It's the case that Roberts is not letting this go. They make the way into the turn 4 hairpin, and Loke this time goes very deep. He's lined up a run to turn number 5 here, but he doesn't get it done in time, and Roberts now has enough momentum as they make the way down towards the chicane. Now where will Loke go for it? Will he go for it here, or will he wait for later in the lap? Well, he's got plenty of time to go, and I know that sounds a little bit contradictory. There's only 3.5 minutes remaining, plenty of time. What gives? But it is the case. He's still got a good number of laps here, so he can keep putting the pressure on Roberts. He can be unpredictable. He can say, am I coming for you on this corner? Am I going for you on this corner? And Roberts, all he can do is defend right now and make that Formula 4 as wide as possible as they go too wide into turn 10, and Loke there just puts the rear low tyre onto the grass by a tiny margin and loses the rear, but I think there was a small tap between the wheels of the two protagonists, and that's meant that they've been able to stay on track together. But Loke literally on the edge there as they came through turn number 10, and he's not giving this up yet. Meanwhile, in the battle for P3, it's still Jerome Lamy who leads ahead of Harry Fox, then Paul Smithhurst behind, and Jack Atkinson. But here comes Smithhurst. He takes a peek into the inside for turn number 1. He can't quite find it, and as they make their way through the corner, it's the case that it's Atkinson who goes wide instead, and now Jack Atkinson has to think about settling down and getting back into that rhythm. He's just not quite there compared to the 3 drivers in front, but to be fair, I think he's enjoying this P6 position all the same and being right in this fight and waiting to see if they compromise each other on these final laps. But as they roll them through, we do briefly cut to your leader in the gold class, Roxanne Marshall here, as Roxanne makes her way down into turn number 3, and it is the case that right now in a world of their own as they roll their way on out, and indeed it's the same for our leader in the silver class, as we can see here Marshall heading up towards turn number 4, and we do look to Sydney Millen in the silver class leading at the moment by a sizable advantage of almost 20. We're over 20 seconds from it's Kevin Burke here, and Millen, the French driver, just avoiding the instance and keeping it on the straight and narrow. Credit to the pair of them, and of course they still need to make it to the end of the race. It's not over yet, but they'll be very happy with the points to finish things finish as they are. But meanwhile, we look from them to the battle for the lead, and it is Roberts versus Loke, the lead overall and the leader of the platinum class here, and Roberts is holding on, and Loke, they're going a bit wide out of 11. They make their way across the timeline. 2 more laps to go based on the current pace, and I don't think they're going to be knocking that much pace off of one another if they battle on this lap. And as they head out of turn number 1, down towards 2 and 3 they go once again. We ride on board the gearbox here of Dominic Roberts as he heads through the Kinker 2. Into turn 3 he goes. We're hitting that Atkinson at another slight off track, and that as a result has dropped a bit further back in the battle for P3, but we focus here on the battle for P1, and it is the case that Roberts goes a little bit wide at turn number 3. Under braking into the hairpin, Roberts to the inside, Loke goes round the outside. He just can't find a way round. Instead, every time Roberts frustrates him, but they're side by side and the run down towards turn number 5. It's Roberts on the inside, Loke on the outside, and as they go under brake in here, Roberts has the initiative. He holds the inside into the chicane, and therefore he has the authority to take the track position. And as they make their way out of turn 7, my goodness, it's the case. Remember, this is the penultimate lap. This isn't the final lap unless my map is really bad. And as they roll their way through 9 and into 10, it's going to be so close. They should just creep another lap in as they make their way out of 10, and they're driving on the edge. You can see both drivers there sliding through turn number 10 on the exit. The car literally on the edge of adhesion as they roll their way through the final major corner, and through the Kinker 12 they go. They'll go on to one more lap. Roberts versus Loke. Who's going to be the winner come the end of this lap? Well, we can see that our flag man patiently waited to wave the checkered flag. His name's Barney Flag, and as they make their way out of turn 1 and down towards 2-3, Roberts has a better run this time out of turn number 1. This will keep him safe as long as he hooks up his braking point into turn number 3, but saying it's easier than doing it in in practice. And as they roll the way out the corner, this time it's the case. He's still ahead by a good margin here as Roberts. I think he's got enough, but you can see, oh, goodness me, and Roberts pinning Loke there. And, well, I think Loke was trying to lunge it down the outside to go all the way round on the exit 4 in the run to 5. But in the end, Roberts denied the space. I think he'll feel as though he was pushed off circuit or made to go off circuit. That's one for the stewards to deal with as Loke now finds himself in a battle for P2 with, you guessed it, Drone Lamey. But I think Loke here going very defensive through turn number 6, and Lamey's going to have a bit of difficulty trying to go all the way around the outside of 7 as that's a car off there. That's Blackwell who's had a spin. He's a lap down and he's been able to keep it back. Also, that's Kettlewell, I should say, not Blackwell. And as they make the way out of 8 and 9, Loke is safe. Drone Lamey, however, under pressure from Fox as they come through the corner here of turn at number 10. And as they roll the way on through, we do look. I think we had a driver just go off. I think that was Samuel Hoover. We look to our leader here for as he makes his way out of turn number 11 and through the kink at 12. He's done it. He's held onto the checkered flag. It's Dominic Roberts who is your winner overall in the Platinum class, ahead of Joseph Loke P2, Jerome Lamey P3, and it's Harry Fox P4, Jack Atkinson P5, and in the end Paul Smith has fallen behind Atkinson P6, Austin William Campbell P7, and here comes Roxanne Marshall who's P8 overall. But what's more important here is that Roxanne Marshall is going to be your gold class winner in race number 1 in a brilliant start to finish drive, taking the checkered flag, and it'll be Nathan Willoughby behind, going home in P9 as he crosses the line here. A difficult day for the Platinum driver in the first race. It'll then be Jack Werrell as he comes on through to complete the top 10 overall, as he heads across the line, and then it will be Sydney Millen, who the Frenchman making his way out of the final couple of corners here. A nice conservative drive to take the win in the silver class. A nice drive by them. Congratulations to them. And then be Chris Eddersford in a very difficult race number 1. Right up there battling for P2 at one point with Werrell, but in the end a mistake cost Eddersford dearly. He'll be looking to come back in races 2 and 3. There's no doubt about that. And there's Kevin Burt behind to cross the line as well. And well, it'll be Kevin Burt who's a little bit further back, in fact, as we see Kevin Burt, the final driver, to cross the line on the lead lap. Well, as they now come towards the end of this race, and it's only, I believe, Harvey Antonio Blair who needs to cross the line before the race is complete, and Harvey Antonio Blair being a lap down compared to the leaders who've already finished. It's still the case coming to the end. There's always points up for grabs for the P9 driver here as he crosses the line. That will confirm our race results, and we'll take you through those results subject to any stewards' inquiries. So in the end, after what was a very brilliant 20 minutes of racing, we do very briefly bring you those results, and we start off with the Platinum class here as we do try and get those results come up, and it does look as though those results are not materialising. Apologies for that, ladies and gentlemen. We may have a slight technical issue, so instead we're going straight into race number 2, but not without firstly making some slight tweaks to the broadcast as promised. So we'll be right back in approximately 2 minutes. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back and now gridding for the purposes of race number 2. And your grid for race number 2, of course, with that partial reverse grid. What is that grid that is reversed for? If you'll excuse me, the top 10 reverse grid. It is the case as, well, that's not quite correct. Joseph Loke should not be on pole for the purposes of this race. It may be one of those situations whereby we do have a glitch with the replay file. We will just double check and make sure. Give us a brief moment. That is the case, we will have to look at that grid from directly. Unfortunately, we can't bring you the grid as it should be listed. So instead, it will be the case that our grid will be flipped around very shortly indeed, as we are just forming that grid right now. But what a fantastic race number one. Race in action all the way through and through from start to finish. And as we do wait for our drivers to take to the grid for race number two, it is the case that we expect that rivalry between Loke and what was his peers to go on, and well, goodness me, in that platinum class it is very, very close all the way through. But in the end, it was Roberts who took that win, Dominic Roberts, in a very brilliant fashion. And now we are just patiently waiting for that grid to be set. It's going to take just a little while here, as we do have one driver taking to the grid already, and that is Jonathan Hitchin. But I think it is the case that we are just waiting for that grid to appear, and it does take a little bit of a while. But other things to talk about in that race, we did see that overtaking was quite tricky here at Oulton Park, and we did see a major incident on the opening lap in race number one, and we're hoping things do calm down a little bit with regards to early incidents in race number two. But it's one of those situations whereby, of course, incidents do occur. That is the nature of motorsport, whether in the real world or the simulated world. You are going to get those incidents every so often. But we do have our drivers gradually taking to that grid now. The gridding process is underway. And, well, hopefully we will see a few more drivers than just a couple we have here. And do we have a grid? We don't have a grid at the moment, unfortunately. We'll just try and see if we do have a grid. Nope, we don't, so we are just going to have to wait until all our drivers do load on in here. And, well, of course, they'll be taking a breather as much as they can. They'll be affording that breather, and as they do wait to go racing now, we do look to the blimp camera here, and indeed in a wonderful setting then Little Budworth in Cheshire, it is the case that this circuit always does produce some fantastic racing. And Chris Hitchin, with a difficult race number one, of course, the Symphony Esports driver, he'll be looking to try and improve for the purposes of race number two. And with that top 10 reverse grid as well, it will be one of the situations whereby our drivers will be thinking about what can they do in the next one in terms of where they placed. And our P10 finisher in particular will be very grateful for starting on pole. And we just had confirmed the fact there was a 5-minute break afforded to our drivers between each of the heats. So we are just going to wind things forward a little bit, so that way you're not caught with the break. So we'll be back in about a minute to get ready for race number two. Apologies for that, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back very shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and without further ado, we are ready to go racing. So it will be the case. We do have Jack Will here starting on pole with Nathan Willoughby alongside, and now we go racing once again for another 20 minutes of racing action. And who will it be come the finish? Let's find out who ends up our winner as they're set to go. We're waiting for the lights out. And it's lights out, and away we go for race number 2 here at Oulton Park as Jack Well gets a good start behind him. Nathan Willoughby trying to tuck on him, but look at Austin William Campbell here having to go defensive very early on as Jack Atkinson defends as well, and it is the case our top 3 make it away unscathed, but Roxanne Marshall here going fighting down through 2 and into 3. The goal driver here trying to stay on the inside of Atkinson, but Atkinson going all the way there on the outside here. It's a much safer start for the majority of our drivers, but you can see here the battle from P4 downwards. Here's that mad scramble into the braking zone for the hairpin here, and on the inside that's Jerome Lamy trying to do 2 or 3 for 1 into the braking zone and gets it done. Jerome Lamy gains 2 places there as they roll their way out to the corner and now down towards turn number 5, but as they head down towards the braking zone for the chicane here, Roxanne Marshall being mugged left, right and centre, and there's contact with Dominic Roberts there, and it's the case the goal driver gets caught out as Chris Ederson as well is sent for a spin. And this is going to cause absolute bedlam through turn number 6. Here's the case, we've got multiple drives off site. Anthony can't get a break. He's had to take to the runoff. And as a result, now the Welshman from Sipina Esports, well, he's lost a number of places as well. But we started off the open half of the lap safe and sound. But it was the second half of the lap where it's all gone wrong as they roll their way through turns 8 and 9 and now into 10. And Science, he's got a lot to do here after what's looking to be a good start. As we see Sydney Millen here in P9 trying to hold off Sam Congreve and be fair banning with the platinum driver here when there's perhaps no need to, but after one lap it is Nathan Willoughby who leads. He rolls his way into turn number 1 ahead of Austin William Campbell in P2, Jack Atkinson in P3, Paul Smithhurst P4, Jerome Lamy P5, Harry Fox P6. It sounds like the usual suspects, it is. And then we do have Joseph Logan a little bit further back, P7, Lee Aberdeen P8 as he makes his way down the hill and into turn number 3, and then Sam Congreve P9. They're all platinum class drivers. You can see now they've got blue next to their names. We fixed that for you since race number 1. And in P10 overall, the leader of the gold class is Dan Blackwell here after the disastrous start for what was Roxanne Marshall and also Chris Ederson. Dan Blackwell has capitalised on the situation, but we've got cars going left, right, centre. That's Dominic Roberts who's trying to come on through here, and we also had, I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, we did have the rainbow colour car going a bit wide. I think that was Cy Anthony also going off, and as they make their way down towards turn number 5, it is the case all of our drivers getting caught out left, right and centre as they come rolling on through the chicane, and as they head through turn number 7 and up towards 8, 9, 10. Paul Bouchard here, who's currently P2 in the silver class. Well, after a disastrous race number 1, you can imagine that Bouchard would love that opportunity to come on back and see what they can do. But right now, the thing they've got to worry about is the fact they've got Lewis behind. That's Alex Lewis, who does seem very, very eager to make some ground. We've got a driver going very slowly there, and that is Sam Congreve, unless I'm mistaken, who's had an off at turn number 10 and is now recovering. But behind Graham Nicol here on the outside with Chris Ederson going up the inside, it's a straightforward pass. I think Graham Nicol at this point, Graham P3 in the silver class, he wants to worry about Daniel Nags, as here is Daniel Nags behind in the number 42 car as they make the way across that timeline and on to another lap. And these silver drives, they've got Ollie Pimley trying to squeeze his way on through, and Pimley up the inside, and well, we can see somebody coming out the pits there. I do believe that is Harvey Antonio Blair while the drives making the way out the pit lane, and indeed right now for them it's the case that after disastrous starts this race as well, they're just looking to come on home and bring some points to the board. But meanwhile we look back up to the hairpin, and Dominic Roberts there up the inside of Hooper to gain another position now up to P10 overall, but still P9 in class, with Hooper being a gold driver. And as they make their way down towards turn number 5, it is the case we will now start to see everybody settle down, or will we? That's the question. Dominic Roberts there literally sliding through turn number 6, almost on ice that car. Well, indeed, it's a very hot circuit here, and where it's not ice he's driving on, it's the case those tyres just do not have the grip as he rolls his way through 8 and up towards 9 and going hunting after Dan Blackwell. Although Blackwell, the gold driver, I think won't put up too much resistance given he's not battling with Roberts overall in the championship. But meanwhile, speaking of battling, here's the platinum class as we've got a driver off there, and that off is, I believe, Paul Smithhurst. We've got 3 wide heading down towards turn number 1. That's Fox on the right, Lamy in the middle, and then that was going to be Loke who's going to make it 3 wide, but he's backed out. I think he recognises there's no point, and Nathan Willoughby here has dropped down the order to a degree. I think there's been passes over the course of the last couple of laps and also a mistake thrown into the mix, but I think it's primarily passes. And as we see here, Loke is on the offensive with Ryan on board with the P5 driver right now, overall in the Platinum class. As we can see, Lamy going defensive on the inside. Fox is boxed in there on the outside. And Lowe's going to say, don't mind if I do. He takes that inside space. Oh, goodness me. And catches the car. And, well, look, they're literally on the edge as they make the way down towards turn 5. I think so many drivers on the edge here that that's going to be a saying that's going to be used and done by the end of race number 2. I'm going to have to think of something else for race number 3 as they roll the way through 5 and 6 and up towards 7. But as they come on out right now, everybody absolutely gunning for it here in the 20-minute race in race number 2. And you can imagine when it's 30 minutes in race number 3 in the feature with that pit stop on the cards as well, how it's all going to play out. They'll be pushing even more as right now it is the case that Joseph Logue, he's not happy to be in that position in P4 even. He's hunting down Lamy and he's pushing him as hard as he possibly can. He takes a little peek to the inside there, but there's no way through. As meanwhile, a bit further back, here is Samuel Hooper, who just lost the position to Dominic Roberts overall in the battle at P10. But Hooper's got bigger fish to worry about here, and that is the hunter Dan Blackwell. As up his inside, he does have Alex Lewis taking a little bit of a peek. But it's the case Alex Lewis can't find his way on through as they roll their way across the line to another lap. And meanwhile, we can see here Sidney Millen, the leader in the silver class right now, leading by a considerable margin over Paul Boucherat. The gap between the two of them being at this point in time 5 seconds. It's one of the situations where the French driver just trying to stay clear of any potential trouble and not be caught up in the battles. As meanwhile, speaking of being caught up in the battles, we cut away from it a moment ago and we cut back to it now. Jerome Lamy under that pressure into the hairpin, and Loke trying to go around the outside, and Loke getting a better run down the back straight, but Lamy covers him off here as they go into the chicane once more. And as they roll their way on through, it is the case they stay as they were, as they now head out to 7 and up towards 8, 9, 10. But as they come charging up the hill, we do cut from this battle to a bit further down the order, and in particular the battle for the lead of the gold class. And well, you're probably thinking at this point, well, which one's the gold class and which one's the other classes? Well, that is Dominic Roberts at the head of the picture, and then Dan Blackwell is the second driver in the train right now. He's your gold leader, and behind him, breathing down his neck, that is Samuel Hooper. He's there like a bad rash as they roll their way through turn number 10, but a bit of understeer. Oh my goodness, and Dominic Roberts there almost losing it. As meanwhile, Hooper trying to get as close as possible to the back of his rival for a lead here. And Blackwell, to be fair, he'll be thinking to himself at this point, don't make a mistake, and he makes a mistake. And Dan Blackwell loses the position, and here's Jack Werrell now trying to come on through as well. The Oulton Esports driver has been there waiting to pounce. And as they come in towards turn number 1 here, he's up the inside, and as they cut on round here, it is the case that Jack Werrell gains the position on Blackwell up to P2 in the gold class, P11 overall. And now they come down through 2 and into 3. You can see Blackwell there trying to stay on the outside. I think that's a very, very brave attempt, because the simple reason is he's got platinum drivers behind of Hitchin, Lewis and Congreve, and they all want to come through. And Blackwell here, I think, is going to have to think about, does he let them go? Does he go defensive? Jonathan Hitchin here under pressure as they roll their way through the hairpin, and that is Alex Lewis trying to go round the outside. They're still side by side. This is the battle with the platinum class for P10 in class, P13 overall. Unlucky for some, but not for these guys, we hope. As they roll their way into the chicane, it's still too wide here. Goodness me, one of them's got to back out in the end, surely. No, oh, goodness me, and Lewis being given a small tap there by Hitchin and into the wall. Albeit it's a great still, also do a bit of suspension damage, but not take the wheels off. But Jonathan Hitchin there, well, he was never going to give in. Neither was Alex Lewis, and in the end, it's Hitchin who has survived. Lewis has gone off circuit, and I do wonder whether the stewards will raise an eyebrow at that one, but that's for them to decide. Thank goodness I'm not in the stewards box, I can tell you, because they've got a lot of work cut out already, and there's still more to come as we see Jack Werrell here battling on the inside of Hooper for the lead of the gold class as they make their way out to the final 2 corners. And now on to another lap they go. It's only 8 minutes done. We've still got 12 plus the final lap to go, and Jack Werrell has come out fighting here. It's the case that he wants that win, and he's going all in for it as they make the way down through 2 and into 3. They come charging on down the hill, but as they do at this point, it is the case, I think Werrell here trying to now think as well about the bigger picture and the fact he's got a lot of time in this race, and Blackwell is falling backwards gradually. It's the case that Dan Blackwell set a personal best on the previous lap, but he is running just shy of a second slower than we're on Hooper overall over the last couple of laps. As the clouds come over here, we haven't got any rain fortunately, because iRacing doesn't have that model yet, but stay tuned for that. That's coming in the near future. But we do have clouds coming over, and that may just upset the room of some drivers who might be expecting that brilliant sunshine to last. But as we see Blackwell here staying in that P3 position in the gold class right now. Where's Chris Edisford, I hear you ask? Well, he's P4 in the class, he's P14 overall, and he's making his way through the chicane, and now up the hill he goes, the UK Sim Racing founder, doing everything he can to go hunting after the top 3 in his class. But but he does have a gap of what is 1.5 seconds between him and Blackwell, which he's got to close on down. But we do look from them to the front of the field, and here's Austin William Campbell, who is leading after almost half this race in the Platinum class and overall with Atkinson. That's Jack Atkinson breathing down his neck, and as they make the way down through 2 and into 3, here's the case that Atkinson looking for the move, but he can't quite find it, and instead he does wait. He's patient as they roll their way through the left-hander. We're hearing that Joe Newman has had an incident. He's had to jump to the pit, but right now Austin William Campbell on the outside here. Atkinson's going to look up the inside under braking. Campbell being quite the gentleman here to give Atkinson the space to go for it, and Atkinson says thank you very much, don't mind if I do. And well, I think Campbell there, he's been caught napping, or he's perhaps thinking about just coming P2, because as they make the way down the back straight now, the next driver who would love that P2 position shows low, but here's Lamey on Fox, and Lamey up the inside there and holding on to that P4 as Fox goes too wide with him into the chicane. Will they emerge to the other side, one wide in a line astern formation, and here's the case that Jerome Lamey is at the head of that formation in the battle for P4. But as they come charging up through 8 and 9, once again it is now the situation whether they're all trying to hunt after this man Atkinson, the UK sim racing driver who wants to hold on to the lead of this class. But it's another 10 minutes between him and a checkered flag, which he'd want to see as soon as possible. As here we go, Austin William Campbell comes back up the inside into turn 11, and as they make the way through the Kinker 12, it is the case that Atkinson now finds himself on the outside. Campbell on the inside here. Into the braking zone they go. And as they roll the way on through, they're still too wide just about, as we see getting into the battle. That is Loke as well. And now we've got a battle three-way to the lead as they make the way down to turn number 3. And well, we can see that Joseph Loke here backing out initially. I think he was trying to build a lot of momentum, but then thought better of it. He's going to look for the move potentially into the hairpin on at least one of them, but I think he's going to have to back out again, because you can see here Atkinson having to go defensive. And Loke locks up there under braking and just gets the car stopped. But as they roll the way out of the hairpin right now, my goodness, here's the case the car control being shown by all of our drivers, and particularly by the top 3 right now. It is on another planet as we see Jerome Lamey getting as close as possible. Another lock up there for Loke. I think that front right brake from the driver's perspective is really starting to feel the pinch for that fast driving as they roll their way through turn number 7, and a little bit further back we've got Harry Fox in turn number 5 here, who I think is one of those situations whereby Fox is just having to watch and wait. But meanwhile, we're hearing there's been a jump to the pits for Nathan Willoughby. I think he's been into the wall, and that's promoted Dominic Roberts up to P8 overall, P8 in class, in the Platinum class. And then if we look to the Gold class here, our Gold leader in P9 at the moment overall is Samuel Hooper, and he's got Werrell behind him here, and Jack Werrell is very close. And as they come out to turn number 10, I think Werrell here is going to be considering a move on Hooper. Hooper goes defensive as they head into the braking zone for turn number 11. Well, can Werrell go around the outside? No, he can't in the end. It is the case that Hooper just holds him off, and as they make their way down towards turn number 1, it is the case we can see here Werrell literally squirming left, right and centre, but no way through. And then Dan Blackwell here under pressure from Jonathan Hitchin, the Platinum driver, trying to come past the Gold driver, and Blackwell right now having none of it. But meanwhile, we look back to that battle for the lead of the Gold class, and side by side into 3 they go. It's Werrell on the outside, that's Hooper on the inside, and Werrell dares the dream to go round the outside into 3. They're still side by side as they make their way down towards the hairpin, and as they come into the hairpin, it is the case that Werrell has to back out again. He just doesn't have the momentum. He has the guts, he has the confidence to go side by side around the outside, but he doesn't have the speed. As meanwhile, we're hearing that Chris Edison, oh goodness me, Chris Edison's been in a spin at the hairpin. P4 in the Gold class, he's dropped to P5 in class, with Ollie Pimley taking the position, and that's Simon Congreve going through for the measure as they make the way on and upwards towards turn number 5 here. But Edison just not having a happy day at the office here at Oulton Park, as he's now battling side by side with Nicol into turn number 5, and he lets the silver driver go for the time being. But meanwhile, we do cut from Edison back to the battle for the lead, overall lead that is, and also in the Platinum class, and that's Atkinson, Campbell, Loke, Lamey, and as they make the way into turn number 1, that's Loke up the inside of Campbell. They give one of them space, albeit there. Oh goodness me, coming out the pits, that's Nathan Willoughby, who immediately pins the car as close as he can to the inside of the road. And well, I think that might have just caught Loke and also Austin William Campbell out massively, because you can see Loke, who tried to go for the move, had to back out there in a bit of a panic. And as they make the way now down to the break-ins over the hairpin, with 5 drivers batting for the lead, all separated by only a second, would you believe it? And Joseph Loke up the inside there, Austin William Campbell. Of course, he may have the move done then and there initially, but you can see in the toe, it is the case that Campbell coming back with the toe of Atkinson versus Loke. They make the way under breaking into that chicane, and they both go through side by side. Oh goodness me, it makes every hair on my back stand up every time they go side by side for the chicane, and they do it once again. Goodness me, they couldn't find more room as they make their way out of turn number 7 and through 8 and 9 up towards 10. And Loke is out of momentum here as he's got going up round the outside. That is what is Lamy there as they come on through, and Lamy dares the dream to go round the outside. This is bold stuff from the number 23 driver. He's not got it done yet. He's going to bow on the brakes into turn 11. As he goes around the outside, he's going to lose that momentum now, and Harry Fox is going to try and take the run here as they make their way down towards turn number 1. And well, Harry Fox is going to have the run on Lamy, but he's going to find himself on the outside, and Lamy's not going to give him any space more than what he's required to give as they both make their way out of the corner. Both drivers running on the limit as they head down through 2 and into 3. But as they come down into the braking zone for turn number 3, it's the case that Harry Fox looking absolutely menacing. His surname is Fox. He's looking like a wily fox right now, hunting his prey in the fact that he wants to try and take on Lamy, and Lamy right now is having to defend left, right and centre in the fact that just behind him you've got Lee Aberdeen who's closed up as well. You've also got Paul Smithhurst and what is Dominic Roberts battling, and there's contact between the two of them, and Roberts there backing out immediately as soon as the contact was made, not to turn Smithhurst on the exit of their hairpin. That was very well done to slap the brakes on there, Roberts, but as he makes his way now back up to speed at turn number 5, it's the case he'll be ruining what could have been. He's still got 4.5 minutes, but he'll be thinking about trying to get back to Smithhurst in a short order. As meanwhile the battling is settling down further afield, although I can tell you that Sidney Millen has had a bit of an incident in the silver class. It's now Paul Bouchard who's leading the silver class with Sam Congreve between himself and Sidney Millen. But as they make their way down towards the chicane themselves, Bouchard finds himself in a familiar position which is leading the silver class, albeit he just needs to bring it to the end now, something which he also finds a bit of an unfamiliar position, not necessarily due to his luck, but of course it's that cursed lead position in the silver class. But as we do look from him to Jack Wirrell, our leader in the gold class here, you can see it is the case that he's eventually found his way past Hooper for leader of the class, and since then he's not looking back. He's running off with it, albeit when I say running off, he's only gaining a couple of attempts a lap, and right now Samuel Hooper in fact very ardent in terms of trying to come back at him, but we'll have to wait and see as Ollie Pimley has jumped to the pits from what we're hearing, but we won't be able to find out more about that right now. Instead we come back to the battle for the overall lead, and indeed the lead of the Platinum cars here, and well, every time we cut away from them we're wondering whether they've gone toe to toe once again, and the answer is they never stop going toe to toe. As we see Joseph Loke here, he's battling with Lamy down into the chicane, and it is the case that Loke here having to defend, but given how close he is to Austin William Campbell, and in fact Atkinson has found his way past Campbell, it should be points out. Now Campbell under pressure up their hill to 10 as they make their way through the kinks of 8 and 9. Oh, goodness me, and Loke literally there with a minimal amount of room. He's going to go outside to inside under braking. They go too wide through the corner, and how on earth Joseph Loke is still there? Oh, goodness me, as Harry Fox is off. That is Fox who's had a run wide, but meanwhile he's pointed back onto the circuit, and we can see here that Loke is still right there. My goodness, that man is driving possessed as, oh goodness me, so literally has to go right over to the inside towards the wall there, and I'm wondering if that was a case of just trying to stay clear of Lamy, or whether there's a little bit of a knock between the two drivers, but it's definitely cost Loke time as Lamy now all over the back of him as they head down towards what is turn number 3. As they come charging on down here through turn number 3 and heading up towards turn number 4, it is the case that we look a little bit further back now in the silver class, and we can see here it's all started to build up in the battle for P2. In the foreground we do have with Sidney Millen, who we can see there running their way through turn number 11, and here's Daniel Nags in P4, and between the two of them that's Graham Nicol in P3 in the silver class. So it's not as though the platinum class has it all to themselves in terms of the battling, as Graham Nicol really under that pressure right now as they roll their way through turn number 1. We'll keep our eyes on that in the meantime, and as they come charging down towards turn number 3, it is the case that we do look from them as they settle down a little bit more back towards the leaders again, and well, Atkinson at this point, I think he will be hoping that the battle for P2 3 to P5 just calms down. Alternatively, no, he won't be hoping for that, he'll be hoping that they keep it up and battle one another to their heart's desire, and Atkinson's allowed to just run away with things. With Harry Fox having that mistake, it is the case that Fox now finds himself under pressure from Lee Aberdeen, who goes up the inside into turn 11. It was a bit of a forceful pass, but in the end he's made his way up into P5, and it is the case Lee Aberdeen gains a position here towards the end of this race. They may just make it onto one more lap. I think this is going to be the penultimate lap, as we're hearing that Daniel Nags has had an off, and that's dropped him out of the running for P2 in the silver class, but that's off camera. But meanwhile, we do look back here to our top 4 in the platinum class overall as they make their way down towards turn number 4. And I think actually we could be on the final lap here by the smallest of margins, and it's Austin William Campbell on the inside. It's Loke around the outside, and it is the case that Austin William Campbell holds on to P2 still as they make their way charging down the back straight in towards the chicane. Jerome Lamy staying with them as well. As you can see, Loke there takes a little bit of a sniff to the inside and then peels back in trying to distract Campbell. And as they roll the way on through, it is a situation whereby you see Jerome Lamy just literally staying there glued to the back of Loke. He wants to get in there as well. 30 seconds left on the clock. It's going to be close. Austin William Campbell here will know about close moments as he holds the inside into turn number 10. Loke tries to go around the outside. They're too wide through the very tricky turn 10 corner. They both survive it just about. They're still side by side as they make their way down towards turn number 11. Campbell on the inside, Loke on the outside. It's going to be the checker flag when they come to the line, and it will be Jack Atkinson who holds on to take the win in race number 2 ahead of Austin William Campbell, Joseph Loke P3, Jerome Lamy P4, and then it will be behind them Harry Fox who just pips Lee Aberdeen to line, and it'll be Paul Smithhurst in P7, Dominic Roberts P8, and then Jack Werrell will come on through to take the gold win in P9 overall. A brilliant drive there from Jack Werrell to hold off Samuel Hooper and Dan Blackwell to come on through to complete the gold podium. It will then be very shortly Alex Lewis who comes on through to make it a P12 and a P9 in the platinum class ahead of Sam Congreve, who's P13 overall. And then here is Paul Boucherat who comes across the line, your winner in the gold class, in a brilliant drive there and putting to bed the demons of Donington. Chris Ellison P15, and it will be Graham Nichols held on to take a podium, a P2 in the silver class ahead of Jonathan Hitchin, and then Sidney Millen, who was leading the silver class, comes home P3 when all is said and done after a difficult day in race number 2. We still got a couple more drivers to come across the line. Here is Daniel Naggs who comes across the line, P19 overall, P4 in the silver class, and then it will be Kevin Burke who completes the silver top 5, P20. Harvey Antonio Blair comes across the line there, P21, P6 in the silver class, and then we've got Duncan Watts followed by, last but not least, on the lead lap, that'll be Craig Tillotson who comes on through the final 2 corners here in a difficult day for Tillotson. But to be fair, it's the case, he may be having difficulties at Oulton, but there's still plenty more rounds to go, and plus one more race here today before it is the case that we do head to Knockhill in what is a week's time from now. But now we do get ready to go racing once again, ladies and gentlemen, for race number 3. And well, race number 3 will be, of course, will be a full reverse grid, and we'll be right back very shortly as our drivers are just taking a brief 5-minute break, and we'll be winding forward through that break. We'll be back in approximately 2 to 3 minutes to go racing once again. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss it. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, as we return then, we are just gridding up for race number 3, which of course is the full reverse grid race based on the finishing results of race number 2 here. It's the final race at Oulton Park here today, and it is the case with the race being 30 minutes long rather than your standard 20 minutes. We do have that pit stop thrown into the mix for good measure, which means there is some strategic variety. It's not just a sprint, but you can imagine with the amount of battling we have seen from start to finish in our first 2 races here at the Cheshire Circuit, that is going to feel like a sprint over 2 stints. That battling is going to be fast, it's going to be furious, and who will take the wins in their classes come the end of it? Well, you can imagine that right now Paul Boucherat in the silver class here will be thinking about making it another win as we do get ready to go very shortly. But as all our drives are set, it is the case we look down to the grid, and as we are about to go racing here, it is the case we are lights out, away we go, and it is Joe Newman who held the lead going off the line, and he holds the lead going down into turn number 1 with Cy Anthony there trying to go around the outside, holding on to Roxanne Marshall as they roll the way through the corner. But as they come charging on down towards 2 and 3, it is the case that they all battle on down, but we can see a bit of a line of stern forming at the front of the field. Dominic Roberts there trying to make some early gains. It is the case the Platinum driver here with a difficult race number 2 wants to try and make amends in race number 3, but we can see now as they all head down towards the hairpin, some drivers looking for moves. That's Nathan Willoughby who's battling with Dominic Roberts, under braking but no way through, and as they roll the way under braking, there's contact further back there, and oh goodness me, Chris Edison just cannot find any luck here today at Oulton Park. Race 1 it went wrong, race 2 it went wrong, and race 3 not even a minute in it's gone wrong again, and the UK Sim Racing founder is really having a bad day at the office, as we can see Graham Nicol as well getting caught up there in a bit of an instant. But meanwhile, we do look at drivers having a difficult day to drivers who find themselves right now under a lot of pressure, and that is the Effect Esports' Nathan Willoughby. As he makes his way up through turn number 8 and 9. Behind him is Harvey Antonio Blair, who started, of course, on pole for the silver class after a difficult race number 2. And right now he holds on to the lead for the time being, but almost runs wide there by the smallest of margins, just keeps it on the circuit. But that is going to be Kevin Burke here, who tries to come through on the inside. And as the camera pounds around here, Kevin Burke will guard the inside to gain the position. And, well, that is Jonathan Hitchin trying to come through as well, the Platinum driver. And as he rolls his way out of turn number 12 here, Jonathan Hitchin will gain the position, or at least we do believe so, as they make the way under brake. Oh goodness me, the 2 drivers come together in a bit of odd netco contact, and with it that is Daniel Nags who finds himself caught up, and I think as well that's Alex Lewis who's gone straight on. 4 drivers there all being caught up, and that's very unfortunate there, as we do look to our drivers that are still on circuit at the moment, not trying to recover their races. Harvey Antonio Blair's jumped to the pits, we should point out, but Dominic Roberts at this time, well, he has made some early gains, and as they make their way out of the hairpin right now on lap number 2, when you hear about what's happened further down and be thinking to himself, that's good, a couple of my main rivals in the battle for the potential win have already been in the wars and have had to jump to the pits to take that repair work. As we see Dominic Roberts here all over the back of Roxanne Marshall, and right now it does look as though the second place driver in the gold class after a difficult race 2 after that win in race number 1, of course, is the case Mixed Fortunes. And can the number 6 driver find a way to make it 2 podiums out of 3 today? Well, right now looking good, but to be fair, we've got a long way to go. It is the case we're not even a third of the way in, we're not even a quarter away in, let alone that. And as they make the way down towards turn number 11 once more, we can see Marshall there tucking in behind Dominic Roberts, letting Roberts go. But meanwhile, we do look from the battle for P3 overall to a bit further down the order, and in particular here is Sam Congreve right now, the P14 driver overall, P7 in the Platinum class, battling with Austin William Campbell, and these 2 Platinum drivers no strangers to one another, especially after Donington. Here's the case, they make the way out of turn number 11 and through 12, battling side by side down towards turn number 1. And we do look as though it's going to be Campbell up the inside here, Congreve on the outside. No, it's Campbell on the outside, my apologies. Congreve on the inside, but he gets a little bit wrong there coming through turn number 1. And, well, as a result, he's had to back it off. And that is Chris Eddersford here. And here is a man who I think right now is absolutely determined to make sure that Oulton Park doesn't halt his dreams after a disastrous start to this race. He's still running on the lead lap. He's still running P6 in the gold class. And he's battling with everybody he finds right now as he tries to go around the outside of Campbell. And, well, he goes on a little bit there, a bit of disconnection by the looks of things. As meanwhile, speaking of gold drivers in the wars, that's Joe Newman, who's had a spin from the lead of this race and the lead of the gold class at the turn 5 chicane. It is the case that Newman has got it wrong, and now Roxanne Marshall is your gold leader, but he's just come out behind, or come back onto the circuit behind the battle between Jerome Ramey and Lee Aberdeen, and they're fighting for position around where's Sydney Millen there as they make their way into turn number 10. And you can imagine Sydney Millen, the second place driver in the silver class, just does not not want to be involved in this, wants to stay out the way. As behind, that's Joe Newman and Jack Werrell battling for goal position in the P4 as they make the way down towards turn number 11. My goodness, this race has already given us tons of battles, and as they make the way out to the corner, well, Newman right now finds himself a little bit behind Werrell as they head across the timing line and onto another lap, side by side into turn number 1 as they make the way under braking here. Jack Werrell holds that inside line very comfortably there, and Newman backing out, and as they head down the hill towards turn number 3, it is the case that right now Jack Werrell, the Oulton esports driver, keeping his cool here and pushing on as they roll the way through and on to the hairpin they go. And speaking of the hairpin, hold up a second, Dominic Roberts is now your leader. What's happened to Cy Anthony? Well, I think the hairpin's claimed him as the Symphony Esports driver who was battling for the lead. Has dropped all the way back to Pisa, and he's going to drop even further at this point as we're in. Sam Congreve has jumped to the pits as well. So it's the case our Platinum driver's really having a difficult day here if it's not the top 6 that we saw from race number 2. And Cy Anthony right now, no stranger to that, as it's the case. The number 27 driver here, just not having a happy day at the office. But as he brings himself back up to speed right now, a bit further back here, here is Alex Lewis chasing after Jack Atkinson. They're battling for P15 overall, P7 in the Platinum class, the pair of them, as they roll their way through the chicane. And right now, Alex Lewis doing everything he can to stay with Atkinson, because I think he wants to stay with Atkinson to close up to the battle for the higher Platinum positions later on in the race. But we'll have to wait and see. He'll got a long way to go. Of course, also that pit stop to contend with, and how will our drivers play out? Will we see undercuts? Will we see overcuts? Will we see everybody pit about the same time? Well, we saw at Donington there were quite a few attempts at undercuts, and some of them were very successful. Will we see that again today, as we already have it into the pits? That's Austin William Campbell coming in, and Chris Eddersford as well. I wonder if this is a scheduled stop. Well, Chris Eddersford, hold up a second, what's gone wrong here for Chris Eddersford? I think it's the case he might have missed his pit box. Well, he's pulling on in now, but that's gone very wrong for Eddersford. He's just not having a happy day as Chris Eddersford. As meanwhile, we see here, looking back to our battles out of the circuit. Oh, going to be a Jerome Lamy. They've been in contact with Watts, I believe that was, as they roll their way through the corner. Well, it is the case that Jerome Lamy, they've been in the contact with Watts, and Duncan Watts has been sent down the order. The We Went car racing driver having a difficult day, and as they make their way down towards turn number 5 right now, it is the case that Britain is across the circuit. That is, I believe, that is Lee Aberdeen, and Cy Anthony has been involved in an incident with Lee Aberdeen. Goodness me. And we're only saying moments ago that Cy Anthony was no stranger to be experiencing incidents today, and Lee Aberdeen neither, as Lee Aberdeen has jumped to the pit. Cy Anthony has got away with it, but he's dropping positions once again, as that's Paul Bouchard coming on through a lap down, fortunately for Anthony. As they make the way back up to speed, it is the case now. We can see here Jack Atkinson trying to put that pressure on Cy Anthony as they roll the way through turn number 10. I think Cy Anthony's got a major problem with the car, because he's going very slowly through turn number 10, just no momentum in that Formula 4, and now it's the case that Jack Atkinson is just coming up through the order, and Alex Lewis with him. And we did say that Alex Lewis was trying to peg himself to the back of Atkinson and trying to follow the Briton through, and he's proving the point here as we're hearing that Jerome Lamy's into the pits. And I wonder if that's for a bit of damage experience down at the hairpin on the previous lap, as they now make their way onto lap number 6. Well, we'll have to wait and see whether this is the ultimate undercut. Well, if it is the undercut, it's a very quick pit stop as he makes his way out of the pit lane, not without internet connectivity issues. And instead we jump to Jack Werrell at this point, who right now running P5 overall and P3 in the gold class. Right now the Oulton esports driver chasing after Ollie Pimley and Roxanne Marshall, who are quite a way up the road. But Ollie Pimley, as we look at Pimley making his way through the chicane, it is the case he's been passed by Nathan Willoughby. And in fact, Ollie Pimley comes off circuit here, and that is going to give Jack Werrell the position. Ollie Pimley jumps to the pits. I wonder if there's been an off there at the chicane. We haven't quite seen it, but it is the case that Ollie Pimley, with a damaged car, has decided he can't continue, and he's come on into the pits. And well, that is Jack Werrell up another place here, and I think he'll be rubbing his hands together. In his head, of course, he wants to keep both hands on the steering wheel and be thinking about what else he can gain. Well, speaking of gains, it is the case we look back to Jack Atkinson here, P3 in the Platinum class, as right now he has Alex Lewis staying with him, and ahead of them, that is, unless I'm very much mistaken, that's Joe Newman, the gold class driver, who's running around in P8 overall, and they're trying to find their way past him, and they've got a long way to go before they get to the likes of Dominic Roberts and Nathan Willoughby, but still they've got a lot of time remaining as well, as they make their way on to another lap. But this is one of the closest battles on the circuit right now. We have also got materialising a little bit further back. Jerome Lamy trying to close up to the back of Austin William Campbell. But this field has already spread out somewhat in terms of the battles within classes. So I think it is the case. With the incidents we've had early on, a lot of our drivers now really having to settle into room. We did see this in race number 3 at Donington. The battling in race number 3 at Donington really started off slow and built up to a crescendo at the end. I suspect we're going to see that again as we see Atkinson here trying to go around the outside of Newman. And Newman not yielding there. He doesn't have to be fair. He's got the right to battle for track position versus other classes he so desires. He doesn't get any extra points for it, but it is the case. I think right now Newman just wants to focus on his race, and I think what he's saying to Atkinson and Lewis is, if you want that track position, you're going to have to show me you're fast enough to get it, as they run their way through the chicane. And Atkinson now's got to try and find another way past as they make the way up the hill through 8, 9 and into 10. As they come charging on through the double left and into the right here at turn number 10. It is the case that Atkinson furiously fighting at the wheel as we ride on board here with the Englishman. And as he comes out of the corner and now down towards turn number 11, he's going to be made to look around the outside. Will he lunge it under braking? No, he doesn't dare to do so here. I think thinking more about his race in the long term. But you can see a little bit of frustration building, I think, for Atkinson as he is covered off there. And, well, Newman pulling over to the right and Atkinson having to lift there. And I think Atkinson is not really too happy with Newman right now. But as I say, Newman has a right to defend as long as he defends safely. And as they head down the hill here, the first third of this race complete. We're 10 minutes in and they roll the way into turn number 3. Atkinson losing ground hand over fist as they head up towards the hairpin. Now, will he have the move this time? He's going to look around the outside here. This is battling between classes, but it is one of our closest battles. And as they roll their way through the 4 hairpin, it is the case. We can see Atkinson close enough to literally reach out and touch the rear wing of Joe Newman's car, but he's just not able to get that move on. But meanwhile, a bit further back, Jerome Lamy up the inside of what was Austin William Campbell there, going into the hairpin. And as they make the way on out and now down towards turn number 5 here, it is the case that Jerome Lamy, well, he's going to have Austin William Campbell trying to come back at him in very quick order, I can imagine. But as they roll the way on through there, Jerome Lamy again just experiencing some slight connectivity issues, but he does seem to be having his connection settled down every so often. And Austin William Campbell, they're going a bit wide. That's going to cost him some time up the hill. Indeed, you can see how that gap has opened up massively. And Jerome Lamy, they're getting the move done on the inside into the hairpin. And a very nice move done there indeed for P5 in the Platinum class, P11 overall. But as we look from them to a bit further up the order, once again, we do look back to Atkinson here, who you can see has been forced back to Alex Lewis by Newman's defending. And funny enough, this does remind me in a way, for anyone who's a bit of a British touring car fanatic, you may remember Alan Menu's frustration behind one of the Peugeots here at Oulton Park back in the 90s, where it was the case when a Peugeot running a completely different strategy of race at the time, not quite a different class, but on a different race strategy, was looking to hold on to the lead lap of the race. And Alan Menu had taken his pit stop, was trying to find his way through, and I'm getting vibes of that from Atkinson right now, in the fact I think he feels as though he can go so much faster in this race and go hunting after Willoughby and Roberts, but he's got the problem, which is the gold driver in front of him is just not letting it go. And to be fair, credit to him. And meanwhile, we do look from Atkinson and Newman with Alex Lewis in there as well to Harry Fox here, who right now goes up the inside of Nicol and takes P14 overall. That was Graham Nicol just going a little bit deep into the corner there, and I think it may have been intentional from the silver driver to yield the position and then get the charge down the back straight with the slipstream. In fact, you can see how much that slipstream hit him, in the fact he understeered under braking slightly beyond apex there at the chicane as they roll their way on through. And as they head out of turn number 7 and now up the hill towards turn number 10 they go. It is the case that Graham Nicol running P3 in the silver class here, but just settling into that rhythm and staying there in terms of looking at a potential chase after Burke and Millen later on, but also worrying about being comfortable versus low Ways and Nags in particular. But meanwhile, as we look to Atkinson here, we now have Alex Lewis very close behind as well, and will the P9 driver overall look for a move here for P3 in the Platinum class, given how much Atkinson is struggling. And as they head down towards the hairpin here, it is the case. Well, Alex Lewis not looking for a move this time around, still staying as they were. But whilst they're all battling for what is P7 overall here, you can see just in front of them, I think that is Sidney Millen. And indeed, there is the Frenchman leading the silver class here, who's been reeled in and that rate of closure is 1.5 seconds a lap. But to be fair, the number 13 driver doesn't need to worry too much about these three behind, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see Millen lift off in the run out of 10 in towards 11 to let them go, or alternatively let at least one of them go on each straight, for the simple reason they're not battling with the drivers behind. Their main worry is Kevin Burke, and Kevin Burke right now, to give you an idea, the gap is 6 seconds back. Slowly closing Kevin Burke, but it is the case that Steve Millen is doing enough right now to keep Kevin Burke well at bay as they make their way up towards turn number 11. And as they roll their way through the right-hander and now down into the dip and up through 13 they go, these four being the closest on circuit. It is one of those situations whereby our leaders right now, I think, will be thinking more about the strategy and managing the car than they will about over-pushing it, as is the case. You push a little bit too hard here, and we've seen already what happens. And, well, speaking of pushing hard, Atkinson taking the peak to the inside of 2, not close enough there, but I think trying to get a signal through to Newman, which is, look, just let me go. But it is the case that right now, when they don't have lights to flash on these cars, they have to do these little peaks to the inside, and, well, it's going to be Joe Newman there who comes through past Sidney Millen, and Millen there stays to the left on the outside through the hairpin and lets both Newman and Atkinson go. And you can see that Alex Lewis taking the draft down the back straight and then peeling out to make the move as well. So Millen playing it very smart, and in return gaining almost a triple toe up towards the chicane, and that's not going to cost Millen too much time, only losing about 0.3 of a second in all there to Kevin Burke behind, who's now 4.7 seconds back and still trying to close. But the battle rages on. And speaking of a driver here who wants to try and come up through the order after a difficult start, that's Joseph Lowe, who's battling right now with Nicol. That is Graham Nicol, and we can see here Lowe, of course, a very fast driver overall and within the Platinum class. He's having to battle his way back up the order after a difficult start to this race, albeit starting from towards the back with that reverse grid, of course, and Loke there getting past Nicol up into the chicane and making the ground for P15 overall, and continue to chase after Harry Fox, who is the next driver in the Platinum class, P7, as meanwhile into the pits comes Alex Lewis from what was at the time battling with Jack Atkinson, running in P4 in the Platinum class, and Jerome Lamy has come on through to take the position. But now this is where the strategy element comes on here. Cy Anthony into the pits as well, albeit I think Cy Anthony's actually been in the pits for some time by the looks of things, and I think there might be some issues with the car after those early incidents, and they're working furiously on that car. But Alex Lewis has cleared his pit stop, and now we look to Jerome Lamy. Now what can Jerome Lamy do to essentially jump ahead of Alex Lewis? How much can he push before he needs to pit? That's the question. Of course, it is one of those cases whereby when you see one of your rivals or one of the drivers ahead of you coming in, it motivates you to essentially start putting in qualifying levels of laps where you're just giving it your all. And Lamy here really pushing. In terms of that relative pace, Jerome Lamy lapping much faster compared to Atkinson, who's still stuck behind Newman, and this is a nightmare for Atkinson for the simple reason he's running in the 120s right now. His Platinum peers are running in the 119s, and that is because he just cannot find a way past Newman as they make the way down towards turn number 11, and as they come into the braking zone this time around, we can see it is the case that Joe Newman here defends once again, and with the number 97 driver here definitely showing his credentials of Platinum tier defending, but the gold driver here I think cost himself time in the Hunter Watts, who's up the road, albeit Duncan Watts lapping 0.4 of a second a lap faster, and I think that's primarily due to Newman being defensive. And this time Atkinson's going to have a run into 2 here. He's going to be on the outside into 3. Now will Atkinson have the momentum to go around? No, he understeers a little bit wide, and Joe Newman once again confounds the Platinum driver as they make the way down towards the hairpin. Well, I think if Atkinson has ever sworn inside the cockpit of a car, today's the day. If he hasn't, he's going to break that, because it is the case that the Englishman here really are being held at bay. But still, he pushes on, and meanwhile, we look back to Alex Lewis. Now, where has he come out after his pit stop? He's come out behind Fox, and Fox has already made a pit stop, as has Austin William Campbell. So Alex Lewis right now has lost out quite a lot in terms of in the pit stop, in terms of track position. And we'll have to wait to see what happens later on, whether it is the case he's able to close back up. But it is looking as though here Alex Lewis really now having to gun it in a bit of a lonely place. That gives him a lot of clear air on circuit, but at the same time his worry will be the simple fact that he's not really got anyone around him to give him motivation. He's going to have to go hunting, as meanwhile we look back to the driver who only moments ago Alex Lewis was with, and Joe Newman defending versus Atkinson again as they come out of the final corner, and as they head through the kink at 12, which is technically a corner, albeit we don't really call it the final corner. It is the case they head down towards turn number 1, and Newman again holding on here. And just to keep in mind, neither of these two are pitted yet. They're not battling for that final position. They've still got the strategy to go, but you can just see Atkinson literally squirming behind Newman, looking for that position every time, and he just cannot find it. It's the case as they make the way down towards turn number 4. They head into the braking zone side by side here, and Atkinson just being left out to dry on the outside line, and Newman doing everything right to simply keep the Platinum driver at bay. Well, if he ever wanted to essentially be making a case for perhaps being promoted to Platinum class based on his defending, this is the case today. As meanwhile, one driver who's just had a bit of a major moment at the hairpin, as we look back to, and that's Dan Blackwell running P5 in the gold class, and well, he's taken his pit stop, he's P13 overall, and well, that is a bit of a difficult moment, but it hasn't cost him too much for his race. He's just dropped a couple of track positions, as in fact he's only dropped one track position, and that is to Harry Fox, who right now trying to find his way past Paul Bouchard as they go through the chicane. And he finds his way past the silver driver, who's a lap down through turn number 7. But meanwhile, we can see here Sidney Millen has got Jerome Lamy closing up behind, and the silver driver has got the Platinum driver right on their heels as they make the way into turn number 11. And well, I think it's going to be the case here that Jerome Lamy is going to get the run coming through the Kinker 12 and on towards turn number 1. And Millen here is going to stay on the outside under braking, and indeed that is the way it is going to play out by looks of things. So Jerome Lamy gains another track position here, and he must be taking some motivation from the fact he's already made a pit stop, and he's got Atkinson not too far at the road. In fact, Jack Atkinson has made a pit stop. I should clarify, it's just come up on my screen. It is the case that he has taken that pit stop already. So Atkinson, I think, having a lot of difficulty here as he rolls his way on through. Now, that might be a glitch on my screen, ladies and gentlemen. We'll wait to see. But Jack Atkinson definitely having a difficult day at the office. No, in fact, he has had a pit stop there, and well, just correcting myself, he definitely has had a pit stop as he makes his way up to speed behind Newman. But this is not working out for Atkinson right now, as he's just losing time and almost taps the back there of Newman into the chicane, and that shows you, I think, the frustration really building for Atkinson as they head on through. And speaking of drivers right now who are not having any frustration, we do look to our overall leader here of Dominic Roberts. So as he makes his way through turn number 3 and up towards 4, it is the case of the number 44 driver here in a comfortable lead ahead of Nathan Willoughby, who is 18.5 seconds back. And well, we finally see, I think this is going to be Atkinson trying to go around the outside into 11 versus Newman, and Newman is still holding on. But is he finally going to peel into the pits? He does, and I think Atkinson at this point will be pretty much saying, if you've ever watched The Office, the United States reboot of The Office, and remember Steve Carell's character saying thank you, well, that is exactly, I think, what Atkinson will be shouting in his cockpit right now, because they make the way down towards turn number 3. My goodness, Atkinson has had to literally grind to have that opportunity to get past, and in the end it has come, but a huge cost to Atkinson. In fact, the gap between him and P2 driver in the Platinum class, Nathan Willoughby, stands at 21 seconds. That is the damage that situation has done to Atkinson's race, and right now he's got Jerome Lamy, who has closed up rapidly. Jerome Lamy is flying right now. He has been stripping almost 2 seconds a lap out of Atkinson, and now we'll have to see if Atkinson can respond as they roll their way through the chicane. But as they come on through, it is the case that they make the way up towards turn number 10, and Jerome Lamy definitely in that driving seat, no pun intended, with regards to trying to get onto the Platinum podium with less than 10 minutes to go. As meanwhile, we look a bit further back, and here is Paul Smithhurst right now, who are having a difficult day. After we saw him in that instant earlier on in the race, it is the case now. The Platinum driver trying to find his way past Graham Nicol, puts the car in the middle of the road. And to be fair, do keep in mind, some drivers here may not be fully aware who's in which class, and therefore they're battling with drivers of other classes. Perhaps a little bit unnecessarily, you could argue, still battling all the same. And we'll just ahead of that is Daniel Naggs, who had an off at the hairpin. And we're hearing that Jack Will is into the pits for his scheduled stop, as we see Paul Smithhurst here staying tucked in behind for the time being as they roll their way up through the chicane. And as they make their way up the hill with Daniel Naggs not too far behind, I think Nicol would be wise to let the Platinum driver of Smithhurst go. And as they make the way through 8 and 9 here, Smithhurst is going to be on the outside to inside into 10. And I think Nicol Ben battling for this. It's only going to cost time, as you can see that Smithhurst having to take to the apex curve of turn number 10, the second apex of that. And as they make the way down towards the braking zone for turn number 11, Graham Nicol has been passed, and now he'll be hoping that Smithhurst can pull him close to Naggs. But we look from them to Atkinson and Lamy here, and we actually ride on board and look back from Atkinson. You can see how much Jerome Lamy has closed up over the course of the last lap. That gap now down to less than half a second as they make the way onto the Advan billboard and head in towards turn number 10. As they roll their way under braking here, Lamy looking very close. They've got Watts only 4 attempts up the road from Watts, of course. Duncan Watts being the gold driver who has yet to take a pit stop in his scheduled stop. But right now, I think Atkinson won't be thinking about that. He'll just be hoping he can get past Watts. Because look at Lamy there, literally sideways coming out of the final main corner. And as they make their way across the timeline, Duncan Watts peels over to the left there, and Jerome Lamey's going to look for that potential move into turn number 1. He doesn't find it, and as they come on through and down towards turn 3 they go. Jerome Lamey definitely really putting that pressure on as they roll the way down the hill into turn number 3. And I think Lamey now starting to set up the move into the hairpin. As you can see how close he is, and Atkinson putting the car in the middle of the road. And Lamey's going to peel to the inside as Atkinson goes to the outside, and up the inside he goes there. And Jerome Lamey making it look straightforward. I think Atkinson was looking for the cutback run there down towards the turn 5 chicane, but Jerome Lamey getting that momentum, and just look at Lamey go here after making that move. A brilliant move for P3 in the Platinum class, P4 overall. It is the case now. He's trying to run away, and I think Atkinson may have taken a bit too much out of the tyres by running in that battle with Newman for so long and not able to find his way on through. And now they make their way up the hill towards turn number 10. Well, we've got Dominic Roberts and Roxanne Marshall into the pits. So I look outside my commentary box window. Dominic Roberts, of course, your leader going into the pits. He re-emerges, your leader coming out of the pit. And well, here is Nathan Willoughby to come on through to take P2. He's yet to take his pit stop, however, and that is something you'll need to be worried about as Roxanne Marshall makes her way out of the pit lane. Here is Duncan Watts. He's too far back to capitalise, so Duncan Watts will stay P2 in the gold class, subject to a pit stop. But meanwhile, as he makes his way across that timeline, we do look to Jerome Lamey here, who has left Atkinson already. Look at the gap opening up. It's up to 7 tenths, and they've only done half a lap since the pass. And as they make their way down the hill into turn number 3, Jerome Lamey absolutely flying here as they roll their way on through. We've got Dan Blackwell into the pit lane, and well, Duncan Watts right now, he's the only driver who's yet to take his scheduled pit stop. He's running P6 overall, P2 in the gold class. He's got Jack Werrell getting closer and closer, so it is going to be the case that Watts is going to drop some way down the order, with Sydney Millen coming out of the pits very shortly. And there goes our silver driver leader, as it is the case, making their way out of the pit in the scheduled stop. That's worked out very well. Where is Daniel Naggs? Well, second place in the silver class, Daniel Naggs is only coming across the timing line now with 5 minutes to go. So I think for Millen, it's the case that it's a brilliantly executed strategy, and Naggs right now, I think, more worried about Kevin Burke, who you can see here is closing gradually as they make their way down the hill into turn number 3. Nathan Willoughby into the pits. He's coming from P2 overall and P2 in the Platinum class. And where will the Platinum driver come back on out, given the gap to Lamey? We will have to wait and see, as Willoughby in the pit. And indeed, we do cut to Nathan Willoughby in the pit lane here as we look to the blimp camera, and you can see those drivers making their way into turn 1. That is Jerome Lamey behind Roxanne Marshall, and Jerome Lamey's going to come on through here to take P2 in the Platinum class with only 4 minutes to go. Atkinson comes on through as well, but there is Nathan Willoughby, and you can imagine Atkinson's frustration here in the fact he feels as though he should have been a lot further up the road if it weren't for Newman, and potentially still in that P2 position in the class, and it has not worked out. And as they make their way down towards turn number 4 here, well, Nathan Willoughby, to be fair, has executed his strategy very well in the end by going long. He's now P4 in the Platinum class here, P5 overall, and given the fortune he's had in the first 2 races, I don't think he'll be complaining come the finish of this one, should it finish as it currently stands. But meanwhile, we do look from the Britain to a bit further back in the Platinum class, P9 overall here, P6 in the Platinum class. That's Austin William Campbell, and well, why is he the focus of our cameraman's attention? Because look who's in front of him, a driver who is very well acquainted with battling with Campbell, and that is Harry Fox there, as they look to battle for the final place in the top 5 of the Platinum class, with now only 3 minutes to go by the time they get to turn number 10. And it is the case that Campbell here charging on. Alex Lewis a bit further back here, not in the hunt really right now, unless they really cost one another a lot of time. But we do look to Fox as he makes his way through turn 10 and down towards turn number 11 he goes, and he has got an advantage of 6 tenths as it currently stands. As they roll their way through the right-hander, it is the case that they will be thinking about pushing the car as much as they can. And particularly Harry Fox right now, who has got well in front, as Duncan Watts into the pit for his scheduled stop. We were wondering when Duncan Watts was going to come on in. He's sacrificed P2, of course, to Jack Werrell. He's got to take that pit stop, so he's given up P2 in the gold class. But Watts right now, I think, looking firmly in control of what would be a P3 finish, given that Joe Newman's just had an off track at the final corners from what I'm hearing. So it is the case that Watts has come back out in P3 in the gold class, P10 overall. But Harry Fox here looking for the move on Werrell up the inside into the hairpin. He'll be grateful that Werrell's been very compliant there and giving him the space to operate, and that will mean that for Fox, he's now got Werrell between himself and Campbell. As hold up, where's Austin William Campbell gone? He's had a spin at the hairpin just off camera, and now Campbell, I think, has got to worry more about the fact that Alex Lewis will see that like blood in the water and go chasing after it as if he were a shark. But as he makes his way down the back straight, we do look from our Platinum drivers just outside the top 5 to our Platinum driver who's in the lead of the class, and that is Dominic Roberts here with a 24-second advantage over Jerome Lamy right now. And well, it is the case that Roberts, of course, starting towards the front of the grid since the start. He got into lead and he's never looked back, whereas it has to be said Jerome Lamy has had to really fight his way up towards this P2 right now. It's not to take away from Roberts, that consistency has been absolutely phenomenal. And then we have Jack Atkinson here, P3 in the class, who's tucked in behind Roxanne Marshall right now. Nathan Willoughby not too far behind, and will this be a repeat of what happened behind Newman for Atkinson, where he's caught behind a gold driver who just will not yield as they get towards the most critical point in the race. And as they make their way through turn number 3, we've got Austin William Campbell into the pits again, so that is going to essentially release Alex Lewis. Oh goodness, we're Atkinson getting too close under brake into the back of what was Roxanne Marshall and having to chuck the car off the road there. That could have been near tatters for the pair of them. And in the end, that's Nathan Willoughby who goes through to take P3 with only a minute to go, if that. And as they make their way through the chicane right now, the Effect Esports driver here of Willoughby looking very comfortable. And where it has to be said, he may not have been expecting to be on the podium here in race number 3, but he's definitely earned it right now as he goes up to speed. Meanwhile, it's Joe Newman who's just found his way out the inside of what's there into the hairpin. We just caught it right at the end as they make their way out of the hairpin and down towards the chicane. Now, will Duncan Watts find his way on through as the leader of Dominic Roberts has gone on to the final lap of this race. He's gone to lap number 23, and as they make their way through the chicane, it is the case that Newman right now, well, he's pulling away from Duncan Watts, who's really struggling. In fact, I think Duncan Watts has got a problem there as they make their way up the hill, because behind him, that's Austin William Campbell. He's always pushing him along as much as you would want to push an F4 along in your own F4. That's going to be very difficult to do. But as they make their way through the corner, we look a bit further back, and this is Daniel Nags battling with Kevin Burke for what is the P2 position in the silver class. He's gone up the inside into the chicane, and he's got it done. Daniel Nags gains another place here, and Kevin Burke, well, to be fair, I don't think Burke wanted to fight that one too hard, given the fact he's quite comfortably, he's not comfortably leading necessarily, but quite comfortable on points today. But behind them, here is Dominic Roberts, who right now, with only 2 more corners to go after this one, it is the case, he's pretty much led this one from start to finish, and he's going to be bringing home some major points in race number 3 as he rolls his way down into the braking zone here, and with the checker flag awaiting him, it's not too far away. He comes to the line, and it will be Dominic Roberts who takes the win overall and in the Platinum class in race number 3 here at Oulton Park. And then we will have to wait approximately 21 seconds to see this man, Jerome Lamy, who has had to fight his way from towards the back of the field. He timed it right on the strategy, and he's found himself in the end at P2, comfortably P2. And I think how he would be ruined if he could have been a bit closer to Roberts, but still P2 in the end. Nice work there from Jerome Lamy to come home on the second step of the podium. And there's Roxanne Marshall, who makes it 2 wins out of 3 today in the gold class. A brilliant drive by Marshall. Nathan Willoughby completes the Platinum podium, P4 overall. And there's Jack Atkinson there, P5, Harry Fox P6, and then we have Jack Werrell, who crosses the line, P2 in the gold class, P7 overall, with Alex Lewis coming through to take that P8 in the end as he makes his way to the line. And then we've got Joe Newman, who will very shortly, under pressure from Austin William Campbell here, but Joe Newman will come on through in the end to take the final step on the gold podium. A well-deserved drive there from Joe Newman. Austin William Campbell comes home P10 overall, followed by Joseph Lowe P11, and then we'll have Duncan Watts, who comes to the line in at P12 as he heads on through, and then it will be Dan Blackwell just follows behind him, P13 overall. And then here is Sydney Millen, who makes it another win today. A brilliant drive from the silver class drive. They take the win in the silver class, P14 overall. And then Daniel Nags will come on through to take the second step of the podium in the silver class in a superb battle with Kevin Burke, getting it on the final lap. Kevin Burke P3 in the silver class, P16 overall. And that, I do believe, is all of our drivers having crossed the line. And, well, what a fantastic race number 3. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to go from trackside to take a look at our championship standings after 2 rounds of racing. We start off with the Platinum class. And we can see here it is the case after 2 rounds. Jack Atkinson leading on 69 points by a sizable margin ahead of Lee Aberdeen there, with Lee Aberdeen EMP2 only 2 points clear from Austin William Campbell, and Alex Lewis and Dominic Roberts only a further point behind, and Nathan Willoughby only another point behind. That's how close it is in terms of the battle from P2 to P6, and that's if we exclude Cy Anthony and Jerome Lamy. And keep in mind, of course, Jerome Lamy making his debut in the series tonight, 36 points on the board in one round in P8 there. Keep your eyes on Lamy and also Paul Smithhurst and Joseph Loke. Those three, I think, are going to come up through the standings very quickly and definitely get into that knife fight at the points of what is P2 through to P6, if not go hunting after Jack Atkinson as time goes on. Outside of the top 10, but not to be forgotten about, Harry Fox showing his credentials today, a consistent top 5 pace finisher with 24 points in P11, 2 clear of Sam Gunstone, who wasn't able to make this round after a great performance, of course, at Donington Park. Sam Congreve P13, and Jonathan Hitchin, last of our drivers with points, P14 there, with Gordon Ramsay, Keith Sharp, Murray Luca, and Stajin Veeman completing the standings. We then come to the gold class. And in the gold class, we can see the complexion here is a bit similar to the platinum class, albeit we have 2 runaway leaders. Jet Royal leads on 72 points with an advantage of 19 points over Joe Newman, who's on 53. We then have what is a 9-point gap to Duncan Watts, who's joined on 44 points, but ahead of Roxanne Marshall based on result countback. But do keep in mind, of course, that Roxanne Marshall, and also I do believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, Duncan Watts, both have made their debuts tonight. I definitely know Roxanne Marshall making her debut tonight, and it is the case that they will be looking to hunt down Newman and Wirral very rapidly indeed. Adam Holloway on 42 points, not able to take part tonight, but it is the case, of course, we expect him to be back later on this season, and on 42 points there, how far can Holloway go? That is the question. Carl Cranswick as well, P6 now, 38 points, having only taken part at Donington. We're expecting great things from Cranswick when he's able to return, with Samuel Hooper a point behind, and then Rob Zelby on 32 points there, and perhaps the driver who stole the headlines at Donington with such absolutely scintillating pace. And will we be able to see Rob Zelby come back later on this season and take the fight to likes of Wirral, Newman, Marshall, Watts, Holloway, you name it, take the fight to them, you can be sure of it. Dan Blackwell in P9 on 28 points and 8 clear of P10 driver Chris Edisford there after a night not to remember at Oulton Park. It's almost as if Edisford wasn't involved in an incident, then Oulton Park, I should say, found a way to cause an incident for Edisford. Outside the top 10, meanwhile, not to be forgotten about, Ollie Pimney on 9 points, the final driver in the gold standings who has points to their name. And then we have Craig Walters, Duncan Roberts, John Higgins Jr., and Matt Milner, and Ryan Paul Smith completing the standings. We then come to our silver class, our final of our 3 driver classes, of course, and here the complexion is a bit different compared to the platinum and the gold classes. We indeed have Daniel Naggs, who is leading by 5 points ahead of Paul Boucherat there. And the story between the two of them, Daniel Naggs has had the more consistent set of finishes. Paul Boucherat has been demonstrating the greater pace, but seems to be afflicted by the curse of being the lead driver out in circuit in the silver class. Sidney Millen, meanwhile, keep your eyes on Millen. In fact, P3 there, and it's not just by luck. It is the case that Millen has been very consistent, and that win in race number 3 tonight will have definitely earned them a great favour and a bit of momentum going into Knock Hill next time out. Kevin Wesley Burke in P4 on 65 points. A bit unfortunate today, losing out some critical points, but you can imagine that Wesley Burke will be back fighting fit in a week's time. We then have Chris Hitchin, who is a sizable way down, 21 points off of the top 4 on 44 points. And having to worry about Harvey Antonio Blair, who despite the difficult finishes today, is on 31 points in P6. Graham Nicol P7, 3 points clear of Craig Tillerston in P8. And then we have Eden Frazina and Edmund Webb completing the top 10. Outside the top 10, and not to be forgotten about, Michael Kettlewell there with 4 points. His name is 4 maiden points tonight. And then we have, without any points so far, as they've yet to compete, as I'm to understand it, Tom Carroll, Stephen Ray, Matthias Melhorn, Matthew Green, Martin Rendell, Mark Cadmore, Liam Whittingham, Lee B. Bailey, and Chris Modbridge completing the silver standings. Well, with our Drivers' Championship standings covered, it is the case, ladies and gentlemen. All we've now got to say is thank you very much for watching. And if you have enjoyed tonight and want to know more about the UK sim racing community, then why not check us out at our official website, or indeed our official Twitter. We've got uksimracing.co.uk, alternatively twitter.com/UK-sim-racing. And do keep in mind as well, if you did enjoy tonight and you do want to subscribe, go for it, because if you give us a subscription where it's tier 1 through to tier 3, you'll be able to earn some credits which can go towards league entries on our official site. But also, we do need to give a special thank you to our affiliates here at UK Sim Racing. That's Swelio Ameda Sim Racing Coaching, where it is the case if you're looking to learn from the very best, then you want to learn from Swelio Ameda in the fact that a multi-champion in numerous overall official iRacing series and leagues, including being the 2021 Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge Canada champion, is a brilliant coaching service offered there. Alternatively, we've also got their Race Anywhere. If you're looking for sim racing equipment which is made specifically for the ultimate sim racer, you want to go to Race Anywhere for the simple reason they are the provider of curated sim racing equipment, aiming to only stock products that represent excellent value for the sim racing community. Of course, we appreciate their affiliation and thank you to both of them. But now it is the case that all of our drivers will be packing up. All the F4s will be loaded into the lorries and they're heading to Scotland. It's time for Scotland the Brave, round number 3 in a week's time. The race in itself will take place on Wednesday, the 13th of July. Perhaps unlucky for some, lucky for others. But it is the case we'll be bringing you all the racing as if it were live in a post-round broadcast on Friday, the 15th of July, 2022. Same time as last time, or indeed today. It will be at 7:30 in the evening, British Summer Time or UTC +1. Put it in the calendar, ladies and gentlemen. Knockhill is known for many a thing, and one thing it is very much known for is very close and on-edge racing. And if Oulton Park and Donington are anything to go by, then Knockhill is going to turn it up to 11, and you won't want to miss it. But until then, thank you very much for tuning in. We have been at UK Sim Racing. I have been at Paul at TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, in the commentary box. And until then, have a great weekend. Remember, stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.